All right, good evening, everybody. This is Thursday, May 15th, 2025 at 7:03 PM. This is the Town of Wellington, Connecticut's Board of Finance regular meeting. And the meeting is called to order. We will start with seating of alternates. Walt Parcell has sent an email asking that Melissa be seated in his place. We have a motion for that. So moved. Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right. Next, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. First, we'll start with the minutes from April 2nd, 2025. Anybody want to make any edits? We have a motion to accept minutes from April 2nd, 2025.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from April 2nd, 2025.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Number two, under approval of minutes, is the meetings from April 3rd, 2025.
Would you let Jay take that second? Thank you.
Right, any edits needed? Great, we have a motion to accept the minutes from April 3rd, 2025. So moved. In a second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item number three, under approval of minutes from April 9th, 2025. Yeah, edits need to be made. No. We have a motion to accept the minutes from April 9th, 2025.
Move to accept the minutes of April 9th.
Second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention, I was absent.
Okay, an abstention, Melissa. Item number four, approval of minutes, April 17th, 2025. Yeah,
Yeah, I
If it
know.
wasn't a meeting, how do we have minutes? How do we do that?
well, we ended up doing the minutes because we had an informational discussion.
I don't think we should, and it's into the record. Because,
We'll pass on it
I
then.
mean,
All right, I just need to apologize to people for April 17th, 2025. We had to cancel a meeting because I forgot to change the ID and the password. for Zoom, so anybody who is inconvenienced for that, I apologize to them. The meeting was canceled, and we ended up just having an informational discussion regarding the reval. Next on the agenda is present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress. Stay on topic and maintain decorum. We have anybody who's present to speak. Yes,
Lori Semperbon. I've been a resident for over 40 years, served on the Board of Finance, Board of Ed Chair, Treasurer. I volunteered when someone resigned, Conservation Commission, Board of Assessment Appeals, and PZC for over 20 years, veteran of the U.S. Army and retired school teacher. We have a history in Wellington of not wanting to support the town or the services. Over the past several years, we have used the budget surplus to keep the increases low or minimal. Now, when there's not enough left in the reserve to reasonably do that, we are at a perfect storm. Schools that need major repairs, a firehouse that's unusable, town employees who leave after being trained because they can make much more money elsewhere, a federal government who is cutting education and other funds that municipalities rely on, and a town government who presents a budget and then encourages everyone to vote against it, and wasting money and time on a second referendum. You might also want to tell the Republicans to take down their vote no signs unless they're permanent. I saw 6 or 7 on my way here. There is urgency to get our budget decided and presented to the voters for a second time, as the tax bills must go out in June. Any delay in getting the bills out means that the town will start the next fiscal year without the funds to function. 2, anyone who wants to insist on a zero increase budget is essentially cutting all budgets. Cost of everything is going up, including fuel, public works and school buses, energy to heat and run buildings, supplies, public works, schools, the town, etc. Every year, we insist we need to cut the budgets and put major projects and needs off. We have kicked the can down the road so much and for so long that the can is now the size of a house. 3, no one wants their taxes to go up. Those of us concerned with keeping our small town functioning and serving the people of Wellington want a reasonable budget. A budget of about 5% is not an easy increase to take, but it will allow us to continue to function. Yes, the voters spoke against a 7.4% increase. Please be thoughtful and considerate in your new budget.
thank you. Next, Mike.
Mike McCoo, Clover Springs. I spoke previously at the hearing and the meeting that night and, suggested that I and some other taxpayers were looking for a little more information from the board as to how we got where we were. Since then, the taxpayers spoke and said they didn't like where we were. And I'm hoping tonight, now that this board is in this position of having to take another look at it, that what is put together is thoughtful and has some sort of a strategy or a process to it. Having sat at that table, I know it's difficult. I respect that, but what I'm hoping comes out of this is nothing that's scorched earth or slash and burn, but is thoughtful and then comes with some sort of meaning from it, whether it's a letter from the board describing where we are with the budget, something that the taxpayers can look at and get an understanding of where we were, how we got here, some methodology, something to that effect that helps provide some guidance. That might help some with in the vacuum of that information, everybody makes up their own or speculates, and we see it on social media and conversations around town where people are making up their own ideas or trying to figure out why we are where we are. And I think this board has an opportunity to tell the taxpayers what the board feels is why we are where we are and how we got here. And maybe that helps people make a better decision to the next vote on the next version of the budget. And just a point of reference on the issue of the minutes for the meeting you did not conduct. Having been in that exact position before, what we decided at the time, which may not be right for this board, was to enter a brief minutes in, because there is some evidence that meeting was supposed to happen. People will see an agenda in the records when they look back 10 years from now. And what we entered simply was a document that said minutes. It was in the place where the minutes would be, and it just said, as the chairman said, meeting was not able to be held because of a defect in the agenda or whatever. And discussion was had, no meeting was conducted, something to that effect. So I would offer that as a suggestion only. Thank you.
Yes.
John Tehan, 26 Alberts Mills Road. A lot of people before me have commented on how absolutely atrocious the entire budget process was this year. I counted 4 special meetings by the Board of Selectmen. It seems like nobody could get their meetings straight, and the whole thing was just a mess. The lack of transparency, the use of daytime special meetings, limiting public participation, it was all terrible. But the worst part of it was when everybody voted to send a budget to referendum and then campaigned actively against it. That's ludicrous. We may as well have taken all the money we spent on that referendum and lit it on fire. That's just ludicrous. Was there any fiscal responsibility demonstrated there? I just don't see it. If through these negotiations now in these upcoming meetings, you don't get the cuts that you want, are you gonna actively campaign against the budget again? Let's not go there. That said, we do need to have a discussion about taxes. I've heard many people at many meetings say that the town budget needs to operate like my household does, where we forego luxuries if times are tough. But town government isn't a household, right? Try as I might, I can't find any luxuries in our budget. Snow removal isn't a vacation that you cancel when someone loses their job. Fire protection isn't a kitchen remodel that you have to cancel for whatever reason. Thinking of the budget in terms of your household isn't all bad. I like to look at my spending decisions as far as what kind of value do I get for those spending decisions. For example, I pay $300 a month on a loan for my solar panels. Those solar panels relieve me of an electric bill of $300 a month. Where's the value? When the loan's paid off, I have free electricity for another 25 years. There's a value in that. And so I look at my decisions, how I'm gonna spend my money based on the value I get. Now, what do I get in value for my taxes? Last year, my taxes were approximately $4,800. Under the budget we voted down on May 6th, they'd be about $5,600. I would happily pay that $5,600 for all these services: fire protection, ambulance service, transfer station, snow removal, public works department, inspectional services, schools to educate young people, parks, recreation areas, assistance for low-income individuals, voting infrastructures so that we can all participate in our democracy. That's not even a complete list of what I would get for my $5,600. To my mind, snow removal alone is worth the price. We can go anywhere within 12 to 24 hours after a huge winter storm. No questions asked. That is enormous. Excuse me. Perhaps the people who can't support this budget would be okay if we stopped plowing your streets, or responding to emergencies at your address, or educating your children, or any of the other myriad of services that we get for our tax dollars. Taxes are the price we pay for civilization. They're not a burden. They're a responsibility. They're a promise from each of us to each other that we're there for you, that we pool our resources and get good value for it. I urge the board to take this seriously, send a new budget to referendum that we can all support. And if I see you at the transfer station with vote yes signs, so much the better.
Thank you.
Donna Cook, 77 Common Road. I just have a couple of quick points. One is, I believe the residents of Wellington have spoken. It would be nice if I could live in a world where I did not have to look at my household budget to determine whether or not I could pay my property taxes, but that's not my world. I ask that you move forward making thoughtful, meaningful changes to the budget, not just a total slash, but looking at each area and determining what's appropriate. And I thank you for taking the time for thinking about all this and not rushing into the next level. I know you're gonna be having a meeting next week, so I appreciate you taking a measured approach so that further discussion can be had. Thank you.
You Donna. Anybody else present to speak?
I'd say about Quebec Road, Wellington, obviously. So just an observation, I've heard a few people stand up and speak on, not using our budgets to determine our taxes, and it's not what the town can do for us, so using the town. Town's supposed to help, it's supposed to be a two-way street, and we're supposed to be considerate of our townspeople, and Wellington's in a kind of a unique position in this area. Right now, we've had a reevaluation which raised property values about 35% across the board estimated. That right there increases our taxes, our tax base. I don't think that was considered last time around. So we're already facing with the valuation and increase in taxes. The way I see it is that we should be able to, because of the reevaluation, we should be able to possibly lower the tax rate, not increase it, and still have more taxes than we did last year. But I want everybody to remember too, that in Wilmington, we have a 14% poverty rate. We've got 14% of our population, which is the highest in the area, that's below the poverty line. We also have a substantial percentage of our students, I couldn't do that, but it was like 30 or 40% of our students that are on assistance for meal plans. So we're not West Hartford, we're not a wealthy town. We don't have a ton of services. We have good employees that take care of us. You know, we've got some redundancy in the town. I talked about it in other meetings. I think there are areas that we could trim, but nothing major. Nothing's gonna make a big bullet point in the budget. But I would ask that the council think of everyone's budgets at home. And that, yes, I expect that my representatives will take the same kind of cuts that are less fortunate people in the town have to take as well. Eggs, milk, all of that stuff. We're not talking about luxuries, we're not talking about kitchen remodels, we're talking about basic necessities of life. So, that's all, thank you.
Anybody else for present to speak? Yeah. Like,
Nate Tell, Murder Road, Wellington. Just going off some things here. So we all know how we got here. I mean, we knew that this was gonna fail. We've been saying this throughout the whole process, so this is not shocking that we're here. There's no surprise. We saw that it was gonna be a 7.4% tax increase with home eval going through the roof. I mean, some people saw 80% increases on their property taxes going up. This is not something like, oh my God, where did this come from? We all knew this, all right? A lot of this is being driven from the Board of Education and many towns. And I'm sure there's gonna be a defense that's given from Phil and people as to maintain this budget for the Board of Education. Many towns throughout the whole state are seeing the impact of the education budgets. Stafford saw theirs got voted down multiple times. I think Killingly just got theirs voted down, passed the town budget, but failed the education budget. Wellington has a 9-to-1 student to teacher ratio, and I know it's not black and white like that. But when you're looking at those ratios, you're looking at the Connecticut state at 12-to-1. The nation is 16-to-1. We're at 26,000 and change per pupil per cost, which is about 25% higher than the state average. With test scores of 40% proficiency in math, 44% proficiency in reading, the schools have been going continuously down. We saw this study from this doctor, I don't know his name. We're 10% lower than the expectation for what we were supposed to be, I think, 400 and something people, or 370 and change. We're seeing declining rates, people going to school. We're seeing declining scores. We're seeing increasing school costs. They need to make a serious cut into their budget. And it's not just that, the town does too, right? It's both entities coming together. And it sucks. Nobody wants to see that happen. But, you know, a $500 increase in somebody's taxes, I haven't already said this, but $500 tax increase, if that's all the increase was to somebody's budget, who cares, right? I mean, I think everybody can eat $500. But the problem is it's $500 on top of your insurance going up 20%, your groceries going up 15, whatever it may be, right? The true inflation cost, we all know that's out there. That's the problem. It's a compounding effect that's hurting people that are on fixed income. I can keep on going. The board knows my stance, and many people know. I think we really need to look at this and I would love to see some kind of, hey, net to be raised by taxation, max out at 2%. And in a year with the reval. I did look at some of the numbers if we, because R19 we have no control over, that's already passed. But if we were to do flat funding, which I think Stafford's gonna do, we would be at about 2.7% net to be raised by taxation if I properly used Excel. So, 2.7%. I think that's fair in a reval year. And then next year, let's have the debate and fun again. So, thank you.
Elena Deska, 11 Meadow Lane. Well, we could say a lot for, from both sides of the budget. We can represent many opinions. How many people do we have here? 30? So the last town meeting when the decision for the referendum was taken, there were 30 people. So there are lots of questions which with how that meeting was called and how it was administered. That's if to go back to the town meeting. But even now, okay, 30 of us, so whatever the amount here. I think what the main point here is that 2/3 of this town voted against the budget. It doesn't matter what I think or somebody else thinks. 2/3 of the town, that's a huge number. It's not 20 people difference, 30 people difference. It's 2/3. There are hundreds of people who are very clearly made their opinion about the budget open for this board. So I hope that this board will respect the decision of the town, because it is a decision of the town. Sometimes board takes decision coming from their own opinion, but at this point, I think the board is obligated to take a decision in according with the decision of the town. And the town spoke. Thank you.
You have it.
Come on, Bob.
Bob Shabbat, 17 Jared Sparks Road. Just to make the record clear, 3/4 of the town did not vote against it, because only 28 or 26 or 28% of the town came out and voted. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
I said 2/3 of the voters, sorry.
If I may just add, I looked at the Board of Education change, I think from the other night. They came down some dollar, I don't know, top of my head, but looking at the decrease that they had brought. If we were to look at the new proposal, if the town didn't make a change. The net to be raised by taxation using previous numbers with the Board of Education correction would be 6.4%. So we went down, we would in theory go down 1% after we just voted down 2-1, no. So I just wanted to make that notation because I saw that change in the Board of Education, brings it now down from 7.4 to 6.4. Barely any change.
Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, I'm just saying again, Granite Grove. Just two things. How many people show up to vote? Doesn't matter. 2/3 of the people voted against this budget. If you didn't vote, you don't have a voice. The voice of the people that voted, my opinion, was voting with the pocketbooks. And they're just dismay that the town would increase taxes that much at a time like this. That's all.
Thanks, Mitch. Peter.
Peter Wiltintich, 97 Grass Road, good evening. I too want to comment on the large voter turnout. Over 1/3 of the town voted in a referendum. This is a high voting level for our community. And I think it tells us something. During your budget deliberations, you focus on revenues and applying surplus and drill down into different aspects of the budget. And somehow you lost sight of the whole budget, but the townspeople didn't. They may not have your knowledge of the intricacies of our budget, but they do recognize when something's fundamentally wrong. And in this case, they understood that a substantial increase in their taxes valuation, which for the average home in Wellington ranges from $800 to $1,100 approximately, is a large increase in 1 year. That's not insignificant. And remember, our budgets compound every year. So the effect of that over time is even more difficult for Wellington families. But what you fail to recognize, but the townspeople didn't, is on top of that large increase in people's home valuations came spending increases. Unlike other communities in Connecticut that recognize that, so, okay, we're having a large increase due to revaluation, we're gonna hold down operational costs. We didn't. You know, some towns were 0 to 1 on that, Ashford, for example, because they recognized that, but somehow that got lost in the process. And this entire, what I consider a dual increase of revaluation and spending increases resulted in an overwhelming burden for Wellington families. Something that's just not sustainable. Therefore, I urge you to listen to the townspeople and recognize that we don't work for you. You work for us. And that's the relationship we're supposed to have. And that's why I asked you for a 0% increase in our budget, because that would offset at least the large increase in the revaluation. Thank you very much.
Donna Cook, 77 Common Road. I did want to share one point. We all have different areas of the town that we're particularly passionate about. And I would encourage anybody who is passionate about a particular area, if they are blessed to have extra financial, to make a donation to the department of your choice for the purposes that you want it to be. And that way, when those departments are choosing what to cut from their budget, maybe they can cut something that they wouldn't have otherwise because of your generous gift.
James?
James Marshall, Fisher Hill Road. I currently serve as the chair of the CIP committee, which I know many of you already know. I also, not too long ago, served with some of you on that board. And had talked about many of the same things we're talking about today. Some of the things we're going to talk about related to CIP tonight. And speaking on behalf of the committee, well, the CIP plan was approved at town meeting. Ahead of the budget, we understand that that is not sacrosanct, given that the referendum failed. CIP is a part of the budget. It should be a part of the discussion moving forward as well. The committee recognizes that. We just really want to make sure that that's done thoughtfully and meaningfully targeted as a part of a larger discussion as to where we see both us, your board, other boards in town, see the community advancing and moving forward to address some of the significant capital issues we have ahead of us in years to come. So while CIP should be a part of the discussion, the referendum was not directly, it was not a referendum on the CIP plan. It was just on the increase in the overall spending, largely from last year in the budget. CIP's increases are not great over last year. There's an $85,000 increase to capital reserve savings for future pending projects. There's another $85,000 for 3 small projects in the capital outlay portion of the budget that are unavoidable. They're based on either deficiencies or to capitalize on future grant funding. Beyond that, the increases are even more insignificant compared to a larger budgetary picture. I'm speaking tonight because unfortunately, as was the case last year, historically CIP is used as a scapegoat when cuts are made because it's the easy way to make budgets look better without actually doing the work of evaluating the level of spending and critically evaluating where cuts may need to be made in the general government budget or budgets across the board in Wellington. It remains the case, and CIP issued a letter after you guys did your appropriations, but before town meeting. I'm not going to go into it now, it's available on the CIP website, I just will read one item from that, from the committee, is that it is the opinion of the Capital Improvement Program Committee that the currently budgeted level of transfer for the town's capital reserve fund is an unsustainable level of funding to maintain the town's infrastructure, buildings and equipment, and to prepare for the imminently pending larger capital expenditures over the years ahead. It remains as true tonight as it did a month ago. But one of our primary objectives this year is to really identify, quantify, and get a realistic understanding of what the real rough order of magnitude needs within town. And it remains significantly greater than I think many people are really ready to start to acknowledge and start to try to address, because it is a difficult conversation to have, but it needs to start happening earnestly, because each year is going to continue to be more challenging than this one if we don't start to make meaningful contributions to getting ahead of the need now. We met last night to discuss where to go or what next actions for the community may be. Following a referendum, and the big takeaway is that we really need this board's engagement. And regarding what your goals and priorities are collectively as to what we see, how we address these needs in the town and what we want to see happen, what the goals and objectives are for addressing these needs. Do we want to reduce reliance on long-term capital, recurring capital debt? Do we want to have a debt management policy that limits the amount of debt we take on? To do that, we need to save. Otherwise, there's no way to approach these projects. So I implore you tonight, I hope the discussions continue post-budget season. But I implore you tonight on behalf of the committee to really be targeted and really be specific about any potential reductions that would be related to capital spending account. Be clear, because otherwise the tendency is to just, again, use it as a scapegoat, make cuts that aren't related to any realistic need. And I'm here, I remain available if you guys discuss your things tonight, as well as the two members on the committee that you have. On a more personal note, I just want to say I want to take the opportunity to express my support of the Board of Ed and their proactive efforts on Tuesday night and reducing their budget ahead of this meeting. Being proactive towards working collectively to support their amended budget. And thank you very much.
Ralph Tullis.
Good evening, everybody. Ralph Tullis, 47 Village Hill Road. I'm a little annoyed to hear everyone decrying cuts in budget when what we're really talking about is reductions and increases in budgets. If you want to look at cuts, look at the revenue side. Investment earnings went down $50,000. The line item other went down $7,500. So the balance has to be made up by the taxpayer. Further complicating issues, and I really want to speak to the revenue side of the equation later, the bulk of the revenue now is coming 67% from residential. The grand list for 1,912 residences, the value went up 47%. Personal property only grew by 5.5%. Motor vehicle grand list went down by almost 15%. So that compounded the problem, and that's what got us to a 7.4% increase in taxation. I don't know how we move forward here, but we're not looking at cuts when compared to the 24-25 budget. What folks keep talking about is cuts in spending. Well, the reality is we're reducing the increases. So let's be real about that. Now, as far as how to manage the impact on individual taxpayers, I would prefer to speak to that later. But I've studied this revaluation incremental application where we can spread the increases of the reval numbers over 4 years. In other words, the grand list goes up by 25% in this fiscal year. Another 25% of the difference gets added in the 26-27 budget, and so on for 4 years. At the end of 4 years, we would be at the current revale numbers for a grand list. The only impact on revenue is in the mill rate. We still have to raise the same amount of money by taxation. So we don't go from a 33.89 mill rate down to 26.69. Okay, so what? That's how the numbers are calculated. But I'd like to get into more detail later. But I think for the majority of taxpayers, phasing in the reval makes sense. It eases the pain in the first year. Not necessarily by a lot, it all depends what your property's value went up. If you were under 27% increase in your property valuation, it makes no difference. But when you start exceeding 27% increase in your new property values, that's where the pain starts. And the sad thing is the increase for FedEx in this budget, as it stands, their increase in assessment was $4,000. That's it. How many homes went up way beyond $4,000? And that's a substantial chunk of the grand list, to the tune of almost $22,000 or $22 million. So I think there's some serious consideration that needs to be given towards how we implement the reval and what the resulting tax bills will be to all the residential properties in town, because the burden really grew on top of residential properties and hardly grew on commercial property. So, yeah, and I'll save my comments on the graduated implementation of reval for later in the evening. That's it for now.
Thank you, Ralph. Do we have anybody else for president to speak? James?
Sorry, Bruce, one last comment unrelated to everything else. Your April 3rd meeting minutes, I believe you approved it tonight, but doesn't want to be made the appropriations. They're not available on the website yet. It looks like they're the only ones that haven't been posted. Be a good point of reference to have them up there as people are looking at where this budget is going. It's a point of reference, so if you can work to post on that, we appreciate it.
Linda Meyer now. So, a lot of people showed up to vote, more than usual from the numbers I've looked at over the past years. And the no vote came from across the board. It was an overwhelming no vote. And we expect a zero increase in spending. There's a lot to think about, a lot to discuss. But I think, the numbers can come down to a point, someplace, somehow that the increase bottom line is zero. That would help out to get the budget passed. I think that's what people are looking for. And I also want to thank and appreciate all the board members, Board of Finance, all the boards that show up. I know it's volunteer work and it requires a lot of time and a lot of dedication. Many of us residents and voters can't actually show up and do it as often as you do, so appreciate that.
Thank you, Linda. Peter?
Pete Tanaka, 125 Mason Road. I'm speaking solely for myself. I just want people to realize that if there is a zero budget increase, that actually puts us behind. We have a $2 million grant from the state. We can't provide the capital to do the planning for it. We lose that $2 million. We've had 2 major infestations of insects. We've got a huge number of dead and dying trees falling into the road. The other day, up by your house, Lost Tower, that's because a dead tree went through the wires, caught fire. We need to get those trees cut, and we've had a 0% increase in that now. We have more dead trees, same amount of money. We've already cut all the increase in funding for paving our roads. Schools are very nice, but they're not as nice if you can't get there. We need to plow the roads, we need to have roads that can be traveled. So although I can. There's other increases going up, 20% of the general government budget is in payroll. We've had to increase our payroll significantly to meet federal minimum standards. I have a self-interest in that, not going to prison. So I would like to pay my employees the minimum wage at least, and by paying the minimum wage, we're getting them trained up, and then we get new minimum wage employees and train them. That the loss in continuity and the amount of time and effort it takes to advertise and hire new people is not insignificant. So a 0% is, I don't believe is realistic. I do think we can cut some places. But it comes down to, can we operate? And I prefer to, I mean, if there's no operational budget, it makes my job a lot easier, but I really would prefer to get some things done. Thank you.
Peter? Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing about the 0% increase. People who are calling for a 0% increase in this room, after the school referendum failed, I heard them saying, this is a clear mandate from the voters to fix our schools and to fix our existing schools and not build anything new. Well, how do we fix our existing schools with a 0% increase in our budget? It seems a little ludicrous to me.
Mitch?
Say it again. First of all, I agree this was an overwhelming statement by the voters of this town. It's also not just this town, all the towns around us pretty much had a similar outcome and have gone through a similar process. As far as fixing the schools, I prefer we fix the schools from functionality before we worry so much about their structure. As Nick said, our students, and this is nothing new, I've been saying the same thing for a few years. Our schools are 60% of them below proficiency rates. That's abysmal to a school with it. And actually, I put our cost per student at 28,000, which is significantly more than Talent has, and that includes a high school. So we're spending, what we're spending on our students, K through 8. We should put now geniuses that go on to be valedictorian in high school. You know, and I'm a product of that system. It stunk when I went through it. It's worse now from the rates. So we've got a poverty rate, we've got a failing school system. I think the cut that the Board of Education made, I haven't had a chance to look it over, but by the percentage, it's insignificant. And I think it's tone deaf to what the voters are saying. So, I also don't think, he left unfortunately. I don't think Chip has a seat at this table. That's their advisory. I think it's up to you guys to listen to the voters and make the decision. Thank you.
Anybody else with President?
Just one last thing. One thing that we may hear tonight is that there is contractual obligations. Famous phrase that you hear and stuff, which is true. It is true if the people are on books. What people don't like to really say out loud with that is that unfortunately, we may have to have people that are cut, which then they don't get the pay raise. Nobody wants to do that. Businesses don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do that. But reality is reality. So when you hear contractual obligations, yes, but if we don't have those people, then there's money that we could free up. Thanks.
Mike McCoo again, just a brief comment. Mitch and I grew up together. We went to the same school system. My experience, I don't think was quite as bad as his was. That doesn't mean that he didn't experience it. I'm just saying, I didn't necessarily feel it stunk. I went to a college prep high school and did as well as I chose to do there. I would just sort of need to react with all due respect to his comment that we have failing schools. I think that's melodramatic and false. We can improve, but they're not failing schools.
Thank you. Elaine?
Thank you. Elaine Newcomb, 28 Fermier Road. I want to echo some of what you said, Bruce, in your call to the meeting. We all have here and at the budget hearing, we had an opportunity to speak our mind. You also asked for maintaining decorum, which is important. And as everybody's addressed lots of different items. I'm gonna address this one. We all had the opportunity to speak our mind and then to vote our conscience. However, I don't consider that was a valid vote, and if anybody does consider that, well, I don't think they're being really honest. In many of the hearings, and I don't know, and I haven't had time to look and see if there's codification of this anywhere. When people enter the building, enter the hall for a budget hearing, it is checked that you are a resident. You show your license, you're checked off the voter rolls, and you're given a piece of paper, a physical piece of paper, to vote on the issue that will be coming. That didn't happen. We had a discussion, which was, you know, people are all opinionated, whether it's by verbs or words or whatever signs we choose to use in life. And then there was a discussion and then a show of hands. Oh, wait, we're not sure what the vote was. Could we have another show of hands? There was no artifact. Like the little ballots we would get, a little scrap of paper would get to write our vote, to do a valid recount, to have a valid count in the beginning. Especially when there were people who filtered into the hall while the voting was going on, after some votes have been taken. So I don't consider, you know, everybody has their opinion on the budget. But when it comes to the, and maybe is this why some people are so surprised by what the referendum vote wound up being? Because what happened in that old town hall, you love it, I love it. But was not a valid indication of what really was out there. And I think if we don't have a framework for the honest voting and the referendum, that was, everybody had to be a resident. Everybody had to register their vote. And if there's a discrepancy, we go back and we recount. And I did that years ago. I did that on voting day and absentee counting and the whole thing. So I'm aware of the process. It's tedious. But a show of hands under those circumstances meant nothing. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to add a footnote to that and say that, yes, there was confusion at that town meeting about voting. And hopefully that won't happen again. However, there was significant opposition for the first time to a capital plan submitted by our capital improvement committee in our town. Now, it's hard to base, you know, any conclusions on a small turnout of people like that. But recognize that when we voted overwhelmingly in the referendum, not only did we defeat the budget, we also defeated the capital plan, because year one of that capital plan is in our budget. And our townspeople, again, recognize something you're all not recognizing. CIP has gone up 177% in the last 4 years. Now, townspeople may not know the intricacies of the plan as well as James does, but they sure know that's one heck of an increase that, again, is unsustainable for our community. Thank you.
Peter, anybody else for president to speak?
Yeah, I was at the referendum meeting and it was a real close vote, and I went around and counted the hands up. I thought it was either 5 or a no vote. And that's why she said, yeah, people were sneaking in from around the side and raising their hand. That's not right. I mean, that's weird. That's a very odd thing to happen at a referendum. We should have had a paper vote, especially after, was it a 50-50 vote or pretty close, and, you know, they wanted to do a recount, should have been a paper vote, especially at that point, but just in the beginning, it should have been. And trees falling on Eversource power lines, you see anything that's questionable, that's threatening their equipment, that's what Eversource is supposed to do. They have a vegetation team that comes out and will take a look at it, tell them which pole it's next to, then they can trim it. And that won't be on our tax rate. They should do it every 3 years. They did my street and area, I think it was last year. And then within a month, I was out 3 times, and I called them, I said, you guys are called Eversource, you're wasting your money with that. You know, tree trimming company, because they obviously didn't do a thorough job, I'm out of power. You're sending out an emergency crew, which would you rather do? They eventually came by and they trimmed trees again, and I flickered the other night, that wasn't a tree on my road, but. I was a little bit affected by it, but I wasn't out, I just had a flickering.
Anybody else present? Yes.
Jen with Clover Springs Drive. Sorry. Having the privilege of serving on a couple of boards that have been through this process as far as budgets go. Some of us were elected, some of us were appointed. It matters some how we got to the spots that we were in, but by virtue of being in these spots, our job, as far as I see it, is to help guide a vision for the town. Otherwise, what are we doing? So as we sit on these boards and committees and craft these budgets that you guys are talking about, we try, based on what board we're on, we try our best to look forward and to guide the decisions we make as far as the kids in the town, as far as the infrastructure, as far as anything that needs to happen in the town that the board that we sit on is charged with doing. So for those who are speaking out against the budget, I actually appreciate the folks, Peter, who come to every single meeting and talk at every single meeting. But what we are doing in these budgets is basically working in a vacuum. So we are putting forth what we think is the best possible course of action for whatever stakeholders we're serving at that point. So for folks who want 0% increases or other drastic cuts in the budget that is already bare bones, I would like folks to think about what that is going to look like, as opposed to just saying no tax increase or this much tax increase. Those comments, those decisions all have ramifications for everybody in this town. I urge, beg everybody to think about your stance on this budget and what your vote is going to look like in action in this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
You promised. So. I don't wanna do a show of hands, but I'm just, for most of us that have jobs that are working and stuff, that aren't retired, that aren't on fixed incomes. Most of us don't get a raise every year. We're lucky if we raise every other year or every third year. What the townspeople have said in this vote is Wellington, please don't give yourself a raise. Take 0 increase, take what you had last year, maintain what you're doing, and if I'm not mistaken, last year's budget, put money in CHIP, put money, some of the places that needed to go. Do the bare minimum, don't give an increase. And I'm not talking about salaries, I'm just talking about the town's operating budget. And we'd like the school to do the same thing. Thank you.
Anybody else present? I have 2 letters that were sent to me, so I'll read those at this time. First one, I appreciate the time investment for all folks involved with the entire budget process. With the overwhelming rejected budget, there is an obvious divergence between the elected board's proposed budget and the townspeople who follow the issues and turned out to vote on May 6th. 1, last year's budget allocated money towards our savings reserves that remains in savings. We know that staying with the same budget as last year, requested escalations from the various entities could be accommodated with allocating less money in next year's reserves. 2, with the recent re-evaluation, the increased property tax increases have a significant range. Personally, I'm looking at a 21% increase in my home's tax bill. Being on the Wellington Planning and Zoning Board, I've witnessed a shift in Connecticut statutes whereby minimum lot and home sizes can no longer be regulated by towns and is being rolled out to make housing more affordable. I have the home that I have because I personally built it in 2022. If the May 6th budget passed, I'm looking at $739 a month in property taxes on my home with its 53% increase in assessed value. $739 per month will be more than 25% of my future social security monthly payments. Wellington needs to decide what kind of town it wants to be, or take a disciplined approach to define what wants versus needs, and plan for appropriate practical infrastructure projects. Will Wellington appreciate the significant increases in reevaluation and cost of housing ownership and consider a soft rollout of the tax increases like other towns are doing? In closing, I appreciate folks' efforts in resolving this very important issue. Regards, Doug Roberts, 44 McKellic Road, Wellington, Connecticut. The second one I have. The people of Wellington have clearly expressed that they do not support a 7.4% tax increase. 2/3 of voters rejected increased taxes in the referendum last week. I have talked with many voters at the transfer station. And I have talked with friends and neighbors about the budget. People have spoken, they want a budget with a 0% increase in taxes. They also want to phase in the revaluation. Implementing revaluation over 4 years will allow taxpayers to adjust their household budgets and financial plans gradually over 4 years. Achieving a 0% tax increase is very doable. Donna can provide specifics. In general, I recommend adding back the money cut from the tree budget for safety reasons, carrying forward almost all other budget lines unchanged from 2024 to 2025, asking the superintendent of schools to decrease the BOE budget request by a moderate $250,000. This is still an increase over last year. And reducing CIP to make up the difference. Some members of Board of Finance will say cutting CIP is kicking the can down the road. Well, some years we need to decrease the amount of money we set aside in capital reserve. This is one of those years. Also, the amount we do reserve for capital spending should be equally split between our two future needs, school buildings and emergency services buildings. Thank you to you and the rest of the Board of Finance for volunteering to serve Wellington. Best regards, Matt Clark. And so anybody else present to speak? No, then we will move back.
On Zoom, that's.
No, there's
No,
not.
nobody's up there. All right, so we're moving on to new business, discussion of fiscal year 2024, 2025 suspense list. Donna? She's not here. Okay. So we do have the paperwork that they sent for to be signed.
Yes.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. It's not.
You want me to read this out?
Well, are they motions? Actually. Yeah.
I'll read the cover page on it. Tax collector's recommendation to transfer uncollected property taxes to the suspense tax book for SS number 12-165 and SS number 12-195 regarding the transfer to suspense for real estate acquired by tax sale. The attached list of uncollectible taxes for transfer to the suspense tax book is respectfully submitted for your examination and approval. I hereby certify to the best of my knowledge and belief each tax attached has not been paid, is uncollectible, and should be transferred to the suspense tax list. You've all got the figures in front of you in the categories. It's dated at Wellington, Connecticut, April 1st, 2025, and respectfully submitted by Ashley Montez, Revenue Collector. And action taken by the Board of Finance to Ashley Montez, Revenue Collector. The examination has been made of the attached statement dated April 1st, 2025. Recommending the transfer of certain uncollected tax to the suspense tax book. The tax is listed in each statement and numbered unattached sheets are believed to be uncollectible pursuant to section 12-165 and 12-195 general statutes. Authority is hereby given to transfer such taxes in accordance with law to the suspense tax board. Total amount to be suspended, $7,636.63. Yeah, I need a motion to approve that it be signed and accepted.
Can I ask a question? It's Donna, question for Donna. I know it's the tax collector who does this, but is this the amount that we were thinking it would be, when we did the budget? For suspense, this means we're, this $7,600 that we're not collecting
Right.
ever.
Usually you would have to do the math and figure out like how much, what percentage did she collect? And I don't know what that is, but we could figure it out.
Okay. And I looked, like, couple thousand of it is from people who just moved out of state. Well, at least one guy moved and he left us with a $2,000 bill. No, $3,000 bill. That doesn't feel okay. I don't know.
Did you move out of state into another state?
It says,
Because a tremendous number of these, if I remember from past practice, are foreign students who go back to the Middle East or Far East.
yeah,
And we're not getting hold of them.
That is unlikely in this particular case.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of moved off the earth.
yeah,
Most of them have, yes.
yes, but this, yeah, it just says moved out of state, but.
One particular
There's has to be the car and home, and then there's a business there's a business that went out of business, and that's a $3,000 uncollectible.
Negative assets.
And I just don't, I don't recall if this is normal. I'm sorry. But I mean, we're gonna be agonizing over $7,600, probably 10 different times on different line items. So this is 70, that's not insignificant, so. Take everything we can get.
That's true, but and she's not here to back any,
Right.
so.
Right.
In my mind, the amount of time and effort to track down these people for any is gonna probably outweigh.
If I remember correctly, some of these are years old as well.
Yeah.
They've been trying for years and so the chance of finding them in the next 3 weeks so we can get them into the budget is probably small.
I think, Lori has a point.
Bruce, if I can just
Yeah.
comment, as the treasurer, I worked with the tax collector a lot, and they spent a lot of time going after these people over and over again for years and years, so I think if they've gotten to the point where they wanna take them off of that list, I think they put in every effort to
Yeah.
get their money ready.
Then is this amount what we expected? I guess is were we budgeting that it was gonna be 3,000 this year and now it's 7,600, or it's the opposite, sure? I just don't know.
Well, I think the tax collection rate is always very high in this town, so I
Yes.
think
Yes,
it's,
it is.
it's, you know, it doesn't have a huge effect. And I couldn't tell you specifically, but just my experience is they put in a lot of effort to try to get these people.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Are you thinking, so it's not applied to any of our numbers so far as totaling? It would have to be after, you're waiting to do that until after we take the action to accept the report? Or has that been factored in?
It's already been factored in because when we were going through and looking at the numbers, you had come up with a tax assessment number that was not 100%.
Tax collection.
The tax
Tax
collection,
collection.
yeah, the tax collection number was not 100%, so you had already, it's 99.6% or something like that, so you had already figured in a certain amount of revenue was not going to be collected, and that would probably take this into account.
Yeah.
Exactly. Am I allowed to talk, Mike?
You can talk, but I just can't, you can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Thought you check with the expert.
Mr. Chairman, could I bring a historical point to this? Sure. I can answer some of the questions being asked. Because some of these are from way back years. Even though it is still money owed to the town, it does not affect your current budget deliberations at all. It's previously lost money.
Okay, none of this is for this year, because the most recent one is 2023, I think.
Right, and that is typically the case because the tax collector will not typically put them into suspense until they put a couple of years into trying to track them down.
Okay.
So it does not affect the specific year's deliberations.
Okay, these are 2019 through 2023, so we're clear.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, clearly.
Make a motion, we accept the suspense list as presented.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good, unanimous. I'll sign that after the meeting for you, Donna. Next, item number 2, that policy plan being presented by Peter Tanaka.
Saw that I was on the agenda when I walked in tonight, so I don't have anything in particular prepared. However, for years and years, your board's it's been suggested to your board by the auditors that we have some sort of plan. Or, not necessarily an ordinance saying you can't go over a certain amount, because we all know that you can't take every eventuality into account. But we don't want to be able to spend ourselves so far into debt that we can never climb out and never make sure that we can also operate the town as well as purchase whatever it is we're purchasing. So what we've done is, what the Board of Selectmen has done is we started to look at some other towns in Connecticut to see what their prudent debt policy is. It's a policy, not a limit. So that we can understand where we should be, the general vicinity of how much debt we should be carrying as a town. Up until now, I think we've been very reasonable in our amount of debt. I think it's $150,000 a year or so. This is not an attempt to kill a plan or kill any particular project or any project at all. Any combination of projects. It's just that we want to make sure that we leave our future generations in a position where they can operate this town as well.
Question for Peter.
No, I think it could come up again on a future budget at some point, but it's, this is not denying anyway.
No, I don't think it is either.
So we will move on then to item number 3 on the agenda, under new business. Item 3, 2024, 2025 budget transfers, Donna.
So as we come to the end of the fiscal year, this is the time that we true up the departments. And we have 2 memos. One is for end of the year budget transfers, and the other memo is a salary transfer. So the reason why we have salary transfers is because when we were designing the budget for this year, the town was in contract negotiations, and so the increases for the salaries were not put in the departments. The increase was all put into employee health insurance. So that double-sided memo goes department by department, and it's moving the money out of the health insurance, which is the increase for the employees, you know, in that department by department. And the second memo is end of year budget transfers for 3 departments that are tracking to be overspent for different reasons. And we have extra money that's favorable in a couple of departments. And one department is the assessor's office, and the budget for the assessor shared services with the town of Bolton has some extra money because the budget was just simply overstated. And another pocket of money is in employee health insurance because we didn't need to use the placeholder. So as you go down one by one, I can answer questions for you.
Okay, so the auditor,
Yes,
we were short almost $2,000.
yes.
How come?
When the budget was set, we didn't have a contract, and then we renewed, so we predicted what we thought it was gonna be, but their contracted price was higher than we put in the budget.
Okay. It wasn't because it wasn't that we increased their
We
hours or
didn't
whatever.
use more than the contract.
And then the $9,400 for town office operations, so that, it
Yes.
looks like if there's is it a one-time request for $4,400 for the
That is a
website?
one-time request. It is time to update the website, so we have a price of $4,400 to do that redesign.
And when would that happen?
That would happen if you approve the money, we would do it this year.
Who's managing that? Pete?
Peter is not managing it, the webmaster is
Stacy is.
managing it. The
Okay,
webmaster negotiated and, came to me to see if we could get the redesign done.
As I understand it, and I'm willing to be corrected, I believe that the format that we're currently using is no longer being supported, so it's that time.
It really has to be done.
It has to be done.
It has to be done.
yeah, well, yeah, as a user, I think all of us who've tried to use the website have had, I'm sure we could all give lots of,
Input.
suggestions and input, but,
Give
so
it this date.
hopefully Stacy knows.
Yes.
these things.
We also had a personnel change in that, so we had some issues.
Okay. And so maybe this is good news, so the town of Bolton budget was overstated, it looks like by a lot. Because that's where you're getting the money from to
Yes,
make
I
these
am.
transfers.
Yeah,
So does that mean does that spill over into good news for what we have already done in the budget for next year?
so next year, we decreased it,
Okay, and we already did that?
and we already did that.
Okay.
Dang, that would have been low hanging fruit.
Okay.
You must be so efficient.
And then the old town hall,
Yes,
needs $11,000 for
yes,
the furnace.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
Uh,
we already replaced it.
yeah,
We just had to.
okay,
It's more efficient now, right?
Yeah, let's
but,
go with that.
but like, I guess I just wanna underscore, this is another example, and I'm sure there are many more things that don't rise to this level of $11,000 where they end up on a sheet like this. But there's many things like that we could have and should have planned for and budgeted for. And what we would hope we would be doing going forward. But if we do not put the money aside and plan and do what we say we're gonna do, we're never gonna catch up and we're always gonna be doing this. And it's, it's completely predictable and very frustrating, so. I just wanna point that out.
Yeah, the boiler needing to be replaced should not have come as a surprise to anybody. It gets serviced every year. The person who serviced it probably could have said, yeah, this boiler is exactly how old. It lives how long? It probably, that's what they told me with my boiler. I'm sure they probably could have said it.
Yeah,
And instead of having it fail and need to be replaced.
but that's just how we do things here. I think it's how a lot of towns do things, but that's it. Nothing else to say about it.
It's frustrating.
All right, is everybody ready to move on to vote on these? Now, these are all salary budget transfers. We did not have a union contract in place when the budget was designed while the town was negotiating the new salaries. The funds for the increases were budgeted for in employee health insurance. These transfers are to move the funds from employee health insurance to the salary line items. So I'll read each line, and then we'll vote on each one as we go along. Item number one, $5,293 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to be transferred to 01.0111. Selectmen to move budget funds for a salary increase for the administrative assistant, recording secretary for CIP and emergency services, fire building committee. Webmaster stipend for selectmen and selectmen. We have a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, unanimous. Item number two, $118 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0126 election officials. Move budget funds for a salary increase for the registrars of voters. We have a motion for that.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Item number three, $13,673 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0130 accounting services. Move budget funds for a salary increase for the business manager, payroll coordinator, accounting analyst, and accounting assistant, and to cover OT and fill-in needed during staff turnover. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item number four, $318 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0132 treasurer to move budget funds for a salary increase for the treasurer. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Number five, $33. From 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0135 Board of Assessment Appeals. To move budget funds for a salary increase for the Board of Assessment Appeals. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Number six, $5,720 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0137 revenue collector to move budget funds for a salary increase for the revenue collector and the assistant revenue collector and to cover consulting training needed during staff turnover. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Right. Good, Jason. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The abstentions? Number eight, $127 from 01.0831 to, employee health insurance to 01.0172 zoning board of appeals to move budget funds for a salary increase for the zoning board of appeals secretary. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous?
did we skip number 7?
Okay. Number 7, $1,248 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0171 planning and zoning. To move budget funds for a salary increase for the planning and zoning secretary. We have a
So
motion,
moved.
right? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous? Item number 9, $663 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0231 fire marshal to move budget funds for a salary increase for the fire marshal. So moved. Second? Melissa? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? Number 10, $18,610 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0311 public works. To move budget funds for a salary increase for the public works director and the public works administrative assistant, the crew leader, the equipment operator, and the drivers. We have a motion. So moved. Second. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Item number 11. $4,654 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0351 transfer station. Move budget funds for a salary increase for the transfer station operator.
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Item number 12, $864 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0004 transfers out fund 11 dog fund to move budget funds for salary increase for the animal control officer. So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any nays? Unanimous. Item number 13, $6,595 from 1.0831 employee health insurance to 1.0004. Transfers out fund 13 human services to move budget funds for salary increase for the human services director and the human services assistant.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
Can I just ask a question? I'm just looking at these numbers. What is the actual percentage that it was increased?
2.5.
2.5? Okay. And weren't some of these positions though vacant during part of the year, and shouldn't the savings from those that salary not being used help backfill some of it? It seems like it was 2.5 across the board, you just moved them all in, but are some of these line items gonna be overfilled now?
No,
No,
no, I don't think so.
There was 4 positions that were over 2.5 to meet federal law.
oh, right,
And
okay,
there was one position that was, even though it was empty, we were having to pay that employee until we figured that out. So it doesn't always go 1-to-1, much as
Right.
we'd like it to.
okay.
Is some of that, adjustment for the federal standard for pay that we were under, is any of that in this? Or this is all just straight 2.5% impact?
There is some turnover in here. There is that federal mandated increase started in January of 25. So that's in here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in here for those 4 employees. But yes, some departments have turnover like the assessor. So you notice the assessor is not on this list at all because there's she doesn't need any money because the assistant position was vacant. So it's, just, you know,
Okay. So each
individually,
one was, yeah, okay.
each department just, you know, how it went, and some needed more than 2.5. Some didn't need any.
Mhm. And Pete, can you remind us, what are the increases in each of the next years? So it's 2.5.
I think it was 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 3/4.
2.5, 2.5, 2 3/4.
Okay, sorry, I was off by a quarter.
Okay, so in year 3, which is not the year we're planning for, it's the year after that, it's gonna go up to 2 3/4.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay. That's,
I don't want to stir up any more hate and dissent in the room, but that compared to the teachers union, that I believe is 4.5, 4.5, 4.5.
is that right?
No.
What is it? I stand to be corrected, Phil, what is it?
It's not that.
Oh,
We can move on.
Mhm.
The following departments are tracking to be overspent, and these transfers will adjust their budgets. Item number $1,905 from 01.0134 assessor to 01.0133 auditor, budgeted shortfall and auditing services. Budget for assessor services shared with the town of Bolton were overstated. Do a motion on that?
So
moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous. Item number 2, $9,400 from 01.0134 assessor to 01.0181 town office operations. Budget shortfall and postage due to the timing of the meter refill and new copier lease more than budgeted. Requesting $4,400 for the redesign of the website. Budget for assessor services shared with the town of Bolton were overstated. The motion,
So moved.
second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Item number 3, $11,000 from 01.0831 employee health insurance to 01.0181 Old Town Hall. Unanticipated expense of replacing the furnace and running under budget on heating oil. The one budgeted placeholder in employee health insurance was not needed. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Jason. All right. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Now we're gonna move on to item number 4, 2025, 2026 budget general discussion. One of the things you have in your package there, Donna prepared the a calendar for us leading up to the second referendum. And we were able to make the deadline. So tonight we'll be having a general discussion regarding the budget, and next week we will be voting on required reductions. Then one other thing we're going to have to address in here is, June 18th, 2025, there's a Board of Finance special meeting. And we're considering having a regular meeting on that date as well, because our meeting is scheduled for June 19th, 2025, which is Juneteenth, and the town hall would be closed.
That makes sense. But do you want us to check now, or was? Are we adopting this tonight, or are we just getting it for information?
We get it for information, but, I mean, we could either vote on it now and accept it, or we could do it next week. So everybody has an opportunity to look at their calendars.
I could care less.
Gee, Jeff, why is that?
either Thursday or Wednesday, are both fine with me.
Is everyone feeling okay about that? I am.
Federal.
Town hall's closed, so we gotta pay everybody. More for the night, yeah. Demonstrators.
We're US representatives.
Everybody okay on the calendars?
Sometimes you gotta follow federal law.
Are you saying that might be helpful?
No, I would want to.
That's so funny, Jack, a couple more.
We have to do the 17th too. Each Friday. 17th is the village.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm aware. I can't.
Wants to add more for Creole for Europe in May. Yeah.
Every day is on here.
For a year today.
Well,
Silly.
Are we okay? I don't want to miss anything else. I won't miss anything.
You also want to.
Yeah, I should.
You also want to take more.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay,
think.
makes it more expensive for business.
13, well, I am.
That's fine.
You all set?
I think so, yeah.
Favorite place.
17th and 18th are a little rough for me, but also that I don't think that. I'm an alternate anyway. Both Sam's and I.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ralph.
The conversation going on in the room rather than at the table is drowning out the conversation at the table. So I would ask respectfully that people keep the conversation to a minimum so that those of us online can actually hear what the board is talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph. Point well made. All right, so ready to vote on the change to the calendar. We have a motion.
Move to accept the calendar for the second referendum. Budget process.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. All right, so we've heard a lot of people talk today, but we've heard a lot of people talk over the past couple of weeks about what happened with the budget. By a 2-to-1 ratio, the budget failed. And I think we can agree that it was because the budget increase was too high and not that it was low. So we're going to have to make some substantial reductions in spending and to make this an acceptable budget for the people of the town. I sent everybody a copy yesterday of the voting.
Oh, thank you. That's fine. I know, I mean, I just.
Based on this, for general government, just roughly over 600 people voted opposing the budget increase, while 400 voted for it. Education K-8, roughly 600 people voted against it, while slightly over 400 voted for it. The next week, we're going to have to present a budget to be voted on, one that's got significant reductions in spending. Because we can't have this keep going out to the people to vote, and have it keep voted down as happening in other towns. Every time we have to have a referendum, it's costly to the town. Not to mention the human resource that goes into such an activity. Or budget increases or decreases from town people, a lot of people have said that they like to see a 0% increase.
A lot of people who,
A lot of people who are voters in the
a
town
0% increase to the mill rate or a 0% increase in spending?
and spending.
Cause a 0% increase in spending is still what, a 2.7 increase in taxes?
Yes.
At least,
Right,
at least that.
so a 0% spending increase is still a tax increase. So do they mean a 0% tax increase or a 0% spending increase?
0% not to be raised through taxes.
So they actually want a 2.7% decrease in spending.
Which
Is
is over $1 million.
But what, are we presuming that the no votes want that? Because I don't know that a 0% was ever affixed to it. I mean, we didn't ask any, even a one word question, which some towns did, and we have asked to do it before, but we haven't yet. Which is, do you think for each item, for each question, do you think, are you voting? Did you no vote, because, or if you voted no, do you think that the budget is too low or too high? Higher or lower, are you asking for? So, to just zero in on that, I think there have been several towns who use that method. That's a little bit of information, but it's not, not everybody answers it, and, it's not a lot of detail. To know what that means.
I think also the disparity in no votes between the general government failure and the educational failure, while both did still fail, I understand that. Also suggests that the education budget was more palatable than the general government budget.
There wasn't that much of a difference.
There was a difference.
There was a slight difference, but not that much of a difference.
But like we're saying, it's a difference in a pass or fail, so, that we've definitely had differences that close in pass fail. And in elections easily, so, I don't think you can say everybody's thinking the same way for all three questions.
So I didn't say everybody, I just said people that I have spoken to in town.
Oh, okay,
Have stated that. It's not anything unanimous that I've heard, it's just statements that I've heard from people, heard it from people this evening too, during presence to speak.
But we've also heard from people in present to speak that we don't want a scorched earth policy, we don't want a zero, we don't want a flat budget. I mean, we've heard from 3 people in this room that we don't want this. So it's, just in this room, we've heard both. So again, we're getting very mixed messages from the town. No, the vote, yes. The vote suggests we need to have a lowered tax increase, but the problem is a lowered tax increase because of the issue with the revenue is still going to be a tax increase.
and I just want to clarify something about the Board of Ed, because someone in present to speak or was appreciating their proactive nature and getting ahead of this. And there's been a lot of talk about budgeting, budget increase or amount of increase. They came in lower than any of the other budgets originally at 4.43%. At the annual meeting, I understood both the former Board of Finance chair and the town treasurer to say that the pace of increase should be right around the rate of inflation, to acknowledge that there is cost increase in everything that we do. And the cost of inflation is in the 4% range. So anyway, that's what they started with after, knowing what's going on with the town. they removed some elements, including one that they had in their budget for this year in order to make a deep cut. And they are down to 2.77%. And just by comparison, the statewide average for boards of ed budgets for this upcoming 25-26 fiscal year is 5.24%. And we're talking about other towns too. Ashford's actual expense year over year, spending year over year is 5.46%. Bolton's is 4.63%. Brooklyn is 7%. Coventry's 3%. East Hampton 6.9. Those are some examples of local towns. I mean, there's quite a few here. So we're trying very hard to find a meeting ground here with making up for a real severe revenue shortfall on top of the revow. And the revenue shortfall is not to be, denied. It's not, we have the 200,000 of it is because we applied more fund balance last year than we are this year. So because we're not we're not applying 900,000 this year, we're having to basically make enough cuts to cover that. If we wanted to be perfectly flat, we have to overcome that, even though we're spending less this year. So, we do need to, we use the fund balance to apply to mellow out the mill rate impact for the taxpayers, and that's commonly done in close to the end when we're closing a budget, but that is more modest than what we've done in the last couple of years. So I think I think this budget needs to come down. I think it's like a pretty big stretch to say it's gotta be zero. I mean, definitely not zero overall, because I don't think that's doable. But even to get it flat, I think spending it would be over $1 million in cuts, which definitely would cut into programs and positions that we need, because it's not like we're 3 people deep in a department. A lot of our departments are, the director and maybe an assistant. So that's my thought. I think there's some changes that can be made. I think there's some things that can be made, and maybe we do look at if there's tax relief potential. But one thing I would urge people to do, and I'm pretty sure most people haven't, is find out what your vehicles are valued at under the new state program, because that has gone down 15%. And I've said this before, but personally, for my increase in real estate, my house went up 47%, which is about what the average was. It cut my vehicle savings, cut our family household, cut the increase in my real estate increase. They cut it in half, basically. So it's significant. It's not gonna be that way for everyone, because some people, maybe share one vehicle. I don't know.
Like
So,
my house price, what did we finally figure out? Mine went up like 60% or something like that for my taxes. But I've got one 2017 car, so my taxes on my car
It's not gonna offset you.
aren't going to
Yeah.
offset. But yeah, check out what your cars are going to go down, and maybe it'll help.
If you have a BMW or a Mercedes, no.
Yeah, no, I don't. I got a Chevy Volt. It's a wind-up car. Off it goes.
As a percentage, okay, you can say it's significant, but a dollar.
$1 for the dollar amount? Yeah, it kind of is for me.
No, but what, from where your housing religion, where your.
It went
vehicles and stuff
from,
at?
oh, well, my house went from 114 to 184.
Okay.
So my taxes are going up $1,000,
Okay.
and I don't know, car taxes are, but they started only like $300.
Right,
So
so-
they're not going down much, which is what I said, it's not gonna fix it on me, it helps her.
How much though? Is it really?
Yeah, it's gonna
It's
hurt.
not thousands of dollars.
No, it's not, I have a cape, you know,
I know
it's
you-
not,
I-
I didn't have a $400,000 house before and I don't have one now. So, you know,
I didn't
so
say
there
you-
is that,
I
I
didn't say you did,
recognize
but
it goes away.
the
when
argument,
you-
the argument that it's your car tax are not significantly offset your house tax.
It
I-
is,
I just
it
don't-
is, if you do all the numbers, it is.
I just want to touch on something you said too, when you were going through the board of the surrounding towns, Board of Ed's budgets. Last year, it was said that we should look at Enfield because they were cutting their budget so much and they were laying off, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, they laid off over 100 employees. And people said, we should look at that, we should lay people off. Well, now this year, Enfield is increasing their Board of Ed budget and they're hiring some of those people back. Because
people are.
which I understand, I'm just saying, if we could avoid the laying off. And then having to increase the budget again, because we'll have this whole. Situation again, anytime we have an increase. If we could avoid that. That would be optimal. I don't think laying off people from the schools is worth it.
And then having to renegotiate with them,
Yeah,
plus the discontinuity of education.
Well, not only that, it sort of hangs a sign out saying, this is a risky town to come to, like, I'm sure Enfield is having trouble. With what they did. I don't know if Stafford's following through on it, they've got another referendum that they're planning for. And what I read about it was that the Board of Finance was recommending, or the Board of Selectmen really, was recommending that the whole increase comes out of the school budget. That's a lot of teachers, I think. I think I heard what they were, you know, what that would mean is 6. Now, they're not done. I don't think. I think that was a beginning idea, but it was from the leadership, so.
yeah, and then I have just a couple more things, I've been taking notes throughout this whole thing. As far as Ralph brought it up and present to speak, the 4-year phase in for the reval. Well, yes, that will help ease the burden. We're set for another reval in 4 years because they're supposed to be done in 5. We put it off for a year, so that puts us at 4 years. So right around the time, if we did the 4-year phase in, we would be at the tax, like where it's supposed to be, and then we'd get hit with another reval. I don't know that.
They want. I mean,
No, I'm just saying, I don't personally, while I'm thinking about it right now, I don't know how much. Right now, it would help, for sure, but I don't know how much it would help in the coming years, and that's part of. What we've struggled with as a town. As long as I can remember, it's evidenced by the surprise expense for the boiler at the old town hall. We don't plan for. And if we don't, we typically don't look at the second and third order effects of the decisions that we make. And that's what we have to do. We have to get better about that, not just looking at right now, but what it does 2 years, 5 years, 6 years down the road. We just need to get, that's something that I think we should focus on as well. Ralph's got his hand up. Ralph?
Okay, what's being stated is true for the first 4 years, but if we adopt this policy, then it's going to apply at the next reval as well, only it's going to be spread over the 5-year cycle. Unless by town meeting, we vote to phase out this process of a phased-in reval. If we adopt it, it stays until we retract it. So the next reval cycle it'll be the same kind of thing, only it'll be 20% every year instead of 25. So I can't see where it hurts us in the future. The bottom line is we have a number that we have to raise by taxation, period. And that's going to happen whether we do this or not. But I think from a tax bill perspective for particularly for residential properties, it helps graduate the increase in property taxes so that household budgets can adjust. And that's where I think it has a lot of merit.
Point of order. Is Mr. Tulis a member of this board?
No, but we always let people talk about if they have something to contribute to the discussion taking place.
Okay, I'd like to contribute.
Okay.
I agree with Jason. I think phasing in the revale over 4 years so we can face another revale in 5 years is silly. It seems to me to be a semantic accounting trick and not really anything that's particularly useful.
I don't know if this works mathematically, but it kind of feels like leasing a car versus buying one, where you pay for it, you lease it, you return it, you lease another one, you lease it, you return it, you lease another one. And Ralph, I don't know if it works mathematically. I see you shaking your head. But that's kind of how it feels to me, and I swore I'd never get into bed with another lease.
This isn't a lease, we're giving relief to taxpayers.
I understand that, but it just feels like,
This is the shock of the revale.
I know, but the mathematics of it always makes me feel like you're going to get slapped with something at the end somehow. I haven't wrapped my mind around the math, but I'm not understanding how this is working and how this isn't going to, where's the tax coming from?
Well, I'd like to
It comes
actually
from the
hear
other
a real
tax.
presentation on it.
Yeah.
It's
I think
a very
that's-
interesting idea. Ralph,
Yeah, I do
to his
too,
credit,
but-
has spent a lot of time on it. We just have, just talk like this, you know.
But, yeah, right.
But
So
where do the taxes
if
come
we can-
from? Because we have to still have the money.
The taxes come from the other categories of taxpayers, because you set a budget. Whatever that budget is, that is the money to, the tax to be raised. Plus whatever
So-
revenue fall offs there are, but you know, so, and we do have revenue fall off, so. That, so what it, so, and it affects other things too, like the educational cost sharing formula. There's some other things that frankly, I don't think any of us are expert enough about tax policy enough to really foresee all the downsides. I think it has to be discussed with the town attorney and with other people who have done it. I will say, I think I had some information somewhere here, but not many towns are doing it as of yet. And the ones that are big towns like Waterbury and Bloomfield and some of the, no small towns have done it yet. Real
Yeah,
small.
but those are towns where their taxpayers are under economic stress.
Well, you know, I don't know what the reason is for them, but I don't think we're the same town. I don't think we're comparable to Waterbury.
We have a
They have
14%
a lot
poverty
more.
rate. They have a high poverty rate as
Okay, well,
well.
let's talk about the poverty rate, but what I'd like to get to is talking about this budget and letting Phil talk about his and Bree talk about what the Board of Ed has done and kind of start getting on that. If we're gonna talk about tax policy, there's another one. And I can pass it out to you, but it's a one-time sort of tax relief. It's a town has the option, and again, it would push it off on others, but it would be a one-off probably. Or you could decide it every year, but that would be tricky. I think just to sort of say, we feel the pain of those who have gotten hit with the highest percentage increases. Mine's at like 16%, something like that. So I know they're high. But it's a one sort of like, say, 15% or 10%. It's anything between 5% or 35%, and it's self-contained, and it only applies to owner-occupied homes, residential properties. So it's not across the board. But even the vehicle tax, for instance, was one of the other tax categories. So what we do with this could wipe out the reduction of the statewide policy change on vehicles valuations. So you're talking about, students who are having a rough time and are, paying for college and on a shoestring budget. But they are exactly the folks who would be hit if you wiped out all the impact of vehicle tax, to get decreased. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's more than, you know, a piece of a conversation on a night when we're trying to come up with a budget that will, appeal to the voters in the second referendum. And I think, I'm not saying it's not the right thing, but like, we've never had it on an agenda to talk about tax policy. And I think this other one that is, I kind of call it the Homestead Act, because it's limited to owner occupied property that don't exceed 2 units. So a duplex, say. But that's something we should look at in concert with it, because the other one is sort of tying on to, although I think you have to approve it every year. The other one is tying you on to, you know, to basically changing the impact on all the categories of taxation in the town. And I think there are people who may not even be here who will have fallout from that. So it's a tough decision. I'm not saying it wouldn't solve a ton of problems to just do it and not really look at the details, but I think there's too many details to do it quickly. So can we sort of hear about the education budget?
Yes,
You wanna
I
talk
just
further?
want to hear Ralph's comment.
Okay.
Okay. The effects of doing this graduated reval, where the money is, the savings that people realized in the early years is going to be shouldered by those whose values did not go up much. FedEx tax bill in the 25-26 fiscal year will actually increase from what was paid in the 24-25 year. So by doing this graduated, it helps those with large increases in values, and those that didn't have large increases in value will be paying more because the mill rate, it's going to be affected by the mill rate, whatever that calculates to be. Now, yes, it's a novel concept. Maybe it's not common. The numbers work. There is no gotcha after 4 years. There is no gotcha after 5 years in the next reval cycle. If you sit on the Board of Finance, you should be able to wrap your head around the numbers. If you cannot, I'm surprised that you're sitting here talking about all these nebulous things with no definitive definition of what's going to happen. Okay, education cost sharing will be affected. We will have a lower grand list value in the first 3 years. That may actually help with education cost sharing if you get into the details of that policy or what the formula is for education cost sharing. Now, as far as veterans go, they're still going to get their advantage. They're still going to get their exemption. And yes, we have this other possible statute that was passed back in July, and it gives the Board of Selectmen the ability to arbitrarily reduce anyone's assessment by 5 to 35%. You really want to institute doing that and leaving it up to the Board of Selectmen, because they're the ones that are assigned the ability to reduce an assessment. So I think that's a dangerous statute the way it was written, because there's nothing to qualify you for a assessment reduction under that statute. It's up to the discretion of the Board of Selectmen. And quite frankly, I like my Board of Selectmen. I like everybody on the board, but I think it's a dangerous thing because it's too easy for partisanship and favoritism to sneak in on those kinds of things. But please, if you sit on the Board of Finance, please get your head around the numbers and understand that this is beneficial. Thank you.
Ralph, we have not seen a presentation. We don't have any information on this, except for what you're saying. That's not a way to make a big decision like this. There isn't anyone who's elected who's actually coming forward and requesting that we even consider this. We have no information, other than what you're saying. Sounds good. But I don't have a piece of paper, I don't have anything in front of me that explains this. And how would I even begin to explain this to to the people who've elected us. So I just think we can't rush into it, and I think we all need to understand it a little bit better.
Okay, that's fine. What would you like from me? I will provide you with all the information you need so that you can do the same analysis I've done.
I think from you, we need a champion on the Board of Selectmen, or we need someone on staff, like Donna, somebody to bring the idea forward and tell us how it would be implemented. Because that might be where the devil in the details is that it actually would take a lot of staff time or extra time from the assessor or something like that to actually implement it, to make sure it's done properly, to make sure that there's no inequities that are built into it. I don't know, because I really don't have, I don't know how that all works. So maybe that is why the bigger towns are doing it, because they have staff who can implement it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we're not, the smaller towns aren't, why towns with town managers are not doing it. Because they figured out that it would be really hard to do. I don't know, but I'm just putting that out
I
there.
believe the Board of Selectmen are taking the matter up on their Monday meeting.
Okay, great.
Bruce, would you pass that is that other statute I just mentioned that I don't think board members have.
Yeah, there's more to be passed out.
It's only a paragraph.
Okay, so there's one more person online and then Phil will get it to you. So Heather?
Yeah, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yep,
Okay,
just like that.
Heather Alexson, Hockley Farms Road. Just a point of order, could we reserve non-board members and non-department heads involved in financial discussion for the president to speak at the end? In the, in respect of people's time?
She gets nervous like I do. She's asking if the board can, if we respect people's time by just having discussion among the board members until we get to present to speak at the end of the proceeding.
It's the way we've always run the meetings.
Well, we haven't really.
Well,
always
it's a
done.
it's a bit biased. I will interject about that, but everybody has the right to speak, and we do have that allotted to present to speak for non-board members and non-department that are having the discussion with financial.
They have something to directly contribute to the discussion. We've always let the people discuss it. Thank you. Bill?
So, the board met on Tuesday. You have the worksheet in front of you. They took the time to kind of process what the vote meant. And took the time to go through and discuss really at length what they could reduce without impacting students. And so the reduction that they have is $162,553. And it came out of 5 programs. And again, things that, the first 2, the 10,000 at the center and 10,000 in the hall, that emergency maintenance funds, those were added this year into each budget. They would have been used this year. They were caught last year as well. And so we would have to go back to the town next year to access to a town meeting to access the repair funds. So that's kind of our fail safe. That if something happens, boiler breaks down, it's gonna come out of the budget, but just like we did last year, we had to go to a town meeting to request those funds back. So the 20,000 out, knowing that the board may have to do that again next year. We've always been transparent with changes. Last year was not great news, and this year it's a little bit, it's okay. We had a late change in an IEP after budget. It's a celebration for a student that no longer needs services. There's a $35,000 savings. We always bring those things to you in front of you when we learn of them. So there's a $35,000 cut that is to special education because it's no longer needed. It's not that, and I want to be clear about this because the Facebook crew was jumping on this today. It is not that we are reducing services to a student that needs it. That is not what's happening. There's a student that no longer needs it, and that is a good thing, okay? And then obviously, there was a lot of discussion on multiple boards about the facilities director and the fringes, the insurance. Those two things, at this point in time, the board took it out because, one, we struggled to fill it, we had applicants, but trying to find someone that was right and qualified was not there, and two, the folks that were closer to double that salary, that just couldn't take that position. So it remained unfilled. We have had conversations to ask the town if they're interested. We're having conversations to see if other towns are interested in sharing. But this is something that you may see back in the budget at a future time. But for right now, not impacting students was their priority. And so that's where the reduction came from. So you're looking at 162,553. And then the bottom part of the paper that you have there that Steph was kind of talking about. We have a document through CASBO, which is the business office. And they provide us details, people put in there where their percentages were for their town budget support of education. I pulled as many towns around us as I could, and we are the lowest. What I will tell you is some of these numbers may have changed. But on that spreadsheet as of today, that's what the number is. So someone's Board of Finance yesterday may have cut them and they may not have updated that number yet. But the average on the state right now is that 524. The board is at a 277. Any other year, you'd be celebrating, you'd be cheering for the Board of Education, saying thank you so much for being frugal and good with their money. And it's the reeval that's hurting us this year. So the last thing I want to share is that we are very, very tight with our funds. And so when we put in a budget, there's no fluff. And I said this at the board meeting on Tuesday night. It drives me crazy when I hear about being compared to other towns and the positions that they're cutting. We cut 10 years ago. We do not have a certified world language teacher in this town. Right? We have we have a 0.4 at the elementary school. That's what we have. The other person teaching world language, a 1.0, I should say, she's 0.4. We don't have the 2.0 that we used to have. Went from 2 art teachers to 1, and now we're back to 1.4. We've made some changes, but it's really hard to fill some of these positions and not impact kids, or keep positions and you could cut them and it's going to impact kids directly. And that's the challenge of this. So you can say a class of 14 is small, and it is small, but if you cut a teacher and there's only 2 classes, a class of 28 doesn't work. That is the struggle with a small town. And so the board is very clear on this. If you go big beyond what's already cut here in this 162, and I said this Tuesday night, it's people. You're not gonna get it from supplies. We have a 0% increase for insurance. Yes, we have contracts that went, increased. Those are through negotiated things. But the big impact is coming if you cut more. We're not gonna find another $50,000 in supplies. It doesn't exist. It's going to be a person. And I guarantee you, it won't be this group of people in the room. It will be other people. And so that's the challenge that the board knows, that that's what's coming. So I urge you to consider the time that the Board of Ed put into making the cuts, of being proactive and trying to put something in forward, knowing that it needed to come down, and recognizing that it's half what almost all of these other budgets are for boards of ed.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep.
I just wanted to, so I want to follow up Phil's comments.
Arthur, could you just identify?
Oh, sorry, Arthur Christensen, 14 Birchmere Lane. I wanted to follow up Phil's comments and use Jason's example of town of Enfield cutting all those teachers. So all the teachers that got cut in the town of Enfield were paid for out of our ESSER grants, the COVID money. Enfield didn't budget properly, and they had to cut all those people because they got several $7 million that they didn't have anymore from the town. We had one employee paid by our ESSER grants, and she's gone. Phil would have loved to keep her, but she's gone. So when he says we did things that other towns didn't do, that's a prime example. So I just wanted to follow that up.
Thank you.
Nate Teller, Murder Road. Quick question. It was discussed earlier that the town employees were going up 2.5, 2 3/4. I'm curious, and what is the increases of the teachers that
So it depends on the year, and what I'll say is you can compare a percentage for a contract increase. What you can't compare is contracts that are not alike, right? You're comparing apples to oranges. An increase for a town employee versus a teacher, when you can go next door and have $10,000 more. You're trying to do an increase that to bring people in. So their average was around 4. If what I'll tell you in over 3 years, it was around 12%. What I'll tell you is if we went to mediation and arbitration in negotiations, we would have lost and we would have paid more. And you have a member on your board that sat through those and could attest to that. So we can say it's an inappropriate amount of money for an increase. But if you're going to lose and you're gonna pay more for arbitration and you're gonna pay for their attorney and you're gonna lose anyways, you settle with what you can get, and that's where the board settled.
Can I ask a strange question, because I don't.
Strange
I
question.
still don't, I still don't, I'm so used to state budgets versus town budgets, and I'm still, getting used to how the Board of Education works. Now, the state has just put in a hiring freeze. How does that work within, like, a town versus the state? Whereas, like, I don't know if there's any vacant positions where we have, the state has vacant positions and they freeze them, which basically they're still in the budget, but they're frozen. So then they basically get that money back.
No, we have one vacant position right now, that is the art position, and it's just timing, trying to fill it at this point in the year doesn't make sense. We moved the staff support specialist into that classroom. She has art experience. It's just much easier to do that. It's still posted. We're trying to hire for it, but hiring next year. The only open position this year was the facilities director. That remained open and is now removed from the budget.
Okay, and that kind of actually leads the staff support specialists. I know there's 3, correct?
Correct.
Okay, how would that work? Would there be a savings if they became subs versus permanent employees?
Working every day? No, because I don't think so, because they'd be getting paid about the same amount of money per day.
But
And
you don't always need a sub, correct?
we use subs every single day, and 3 people is not a lot.
Okay.
We still are hurting for subs, and we have 3 people on staff support specialists.
Okay,
So coverage for like PPTs, any of the lunch or recess duties to make sure there's plenty of time. Anytime there's a substitute, those people are on the run all the time. If we didn't have that person right now, Art wouldn't be covered. So now, right now, I'm operating really with 2, because that 3rd person is in the classroom all the time. So, and there's 1 in each building remaining. That's we have flex with.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. What I was gonna say, sorry, Melissa.
No, that's
The and Donna, we'd have to verify this with Stacy. The new law about offering insurance and the number of hours they work, I think that applies to this group. If they sub every single day and they clear a certain number of hours, that would impact. Yes, am I making that up? I think that's new.
I don't know.
I can check on that, because that would be part of the comparison.
Yeah, the benefits would be,
But that's the challenge.
okay.
Yeah,
If you
and
could look into that and.
And the risk is, do they take benefits now or not? I don't want to share if they do or not, but
No, yeah,
let's just say we have some significant savings.
okay.
Arthur?
Just for Melissa's reference, we found out on Tuesday that our subline in our budget is over $1,500, $1,700 in the hole. That's how often we've been using stuff this year.
That's just nurses. That's only
Okay.
nurses.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just to add a comment, I do some subbing in center school, and as a retired teacher, it is hugely impactful if you do not have coverage. So by having the staff specialists, the status quo stays there. You don't have educational opportunities lost because you're plugging a hole here and doing this. It's just can be a nightmare if you don't have coverage. So those staff specialists provide a stability that you do not have from day-to-day subs. I go in, I do my half day or my full day, I'm done. I've gotten to know the kids a little bit, which is fun, but, I don't have any commitment to the district other than, yeah, I'm free, I can do that day, I'm retired, but those specialists, if you then made them per diem, they're gonna look elsewhere for work because they wanna be working full-time. It may not be the greatest salary, but it's a steady, and if you sub, sometimes the districts don't need anybody. So you're gonna lose the availability of people unless they're one of those people. I don't know how many other subs you have on a regular basis. I'm not in there every day, but as a teacher, I can tell you there are days that it's a nightmare when you don't have staff coverage.
Oh, and I completely get it. Like I said, I know more about the state stuff and where the state has now, especially in especially judicial, they've used a ton of temporaries now versus permanent and full-time employees. That's the only reason why I'm asking these questions. It's, I know it's not up to me, or any decision, and I would never want to, harm children's education. But if there is such a budget shortfall, I mean, the state has kind of chosen, and I get we're a small district. But the state has chosen to kind of go that kind of route over the years where they do a lot more per diem people. And I'm not saying that that's right for our town. I just want to ask these questions because it is on my mind.
Yeah, and our freeze is typically like last year, the freeze was the entire budget. Salaries were paid out, but everything else, professional development, everything else was frozen because of the major shortfall in special ed. And so that's where the freeze comes in. It's not necessarily a hiring freeze.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you recoup some of that in the cost effect, the excessive cost grant?
Yeah, we get some, so excess cost is coming in a little bit better right now. The part of the annoying piece of budgeting right now is we're waiting on new legislation, right? So there may be new legislation where it's gonna help us. And there may be legislation that hurts us. You don't know those things and it happens too late to impact the budget. So if it hurts us, we have to deal with it and we have to figure it out within the dollar amount. And if it helps us, it's, that's where you figure out where the gaps were. And sometimes some of that money at the end of the year goes into a non-lapsing account. Sometimes that money gets returned. It just depends on how those dollars. Sometimes special ed goes up $500,000 in a year. It's just, and that's where you bank on those funds. So it's a challenge. We wrote a budget for you that was turned in December, right, or January. And it's based upon our current staffing at that time. So when Donna and I sit down in the summertime and say, okay, 3 people left, we have 2 new hires already. The 3 that left all took insurance. The 3 that are coming in are taking insurance and they're taking family instead of, like, all of those still have to be kept. We operate within those dollars. Sometimes it's really, really tight. Sometimes it's we have some extra too because of those changes.
Well, it's something near and dear to our heart, but this is just anecdotal. The special education transfer out costs are really high, and we've spoken before about the transportation costs alone are high. There's a bill out now, and we got an element added to it that asks for, it's the state would be required to ask for vendors or ask for costs up front related to the special ed mandate. And so they're asking to hear from the transportation providers, and that was just adjusted in that bill. So that would help us because we do pay for a small number of kids about as much as we pay to transport all the other kids, so daily, so it's close.
I had 2 questions. First one is, at Hall, are they in a AB block schedule or rotating schedule, or are they 4x4? And then my second question is, how many, elective classes do we have?
We don't.
There's none, because it was mentioned of
Algebra.
worlds. Okay,
Well, are you talking about unified arts? So you have,
altogether, like any
yeah, so
extra,
you have PE, art, music, band. Library. And, did I say world language? In world language.
okay,
In
and
world
then as far as
language.
the scheduling,
And
is
so
it
they-
4x4?
They rotate through every classroom, every, like PEs once a week, that just goes through the normal schedule, so it's a typical school schedule, 5 through 8. So they are rotating classes through math, ELA, science or social studies, a UA, they have a lunch, maybe depending on the grade level, have a recess. They'll have a wind block, which is what I need, intervention. That's a typical schedule throughout a day for every middle school student.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Bob? So Steph, just curious, you must have some idea about where you'd like to go with the budget.
Well, where would you like to go with it?
Well, you know what, I'm waiting to hear what the board of selectmen decide on Monday as far as any reductions that they can choose to come up with. But, one thing I was thinking about was possibly a 1.5%. And the only reason I'm looking at a 1.5%.
Overall,
Yeah, over 0, is because we're already committed to the, Region 19. So if we end up passing absolutely no budget and it goes to the Board of Selectmen, then we're going to be short about $250,000 toward the end of the year as far as our payments to EO Smith go. So that's the only reason I would want to go to a 1.5%.
well, I can't back it as 0, but if you're talking about 0 taxation to be raised, are you talking about 0
I'm not,
spending?
I'm not
What are
talking
you
about a 0. I said, I'm looking at a 1.5%
Well,
tax increase.
but you're comparing it to, we're not gonna do 0 because of it, so you talk, I just wanna
I'm
know
just
what
saying, okay,
percentage are you
Well,
talking?
all I'm saying,
Are you
okay,
talking
is-
about taking the 7.51 down to 1.5? Or
Yes, yeah.
okay. Is there anyone here that thinks that's
Catastrophically bad idea. I would go. with
Good.
catastrophically
I wouldn't
bad.
expect you to think anything else. Like you said 2 weeks ago, you never agree with me, except for that one time in the library.
Just the
Listen
library,
to
yep.
soccer. So what do you think would be acceptable to taxpayers? Because, the higher you go, if you get up toward like 4% increase in taxes to be collected, then you're also looking at that being compounded by the extra taxes they're paying because of the rebound.
I absolutely
And
understand.
taxpayers are not going to vote for that.
But if you're talking about only raising enough money to send to Region 19 to pay our share of the high school, then basically what you're talking is cutting out of our government and education system here in this town, something in the order of, what did we figure? It's like 700 to $1 million out of the budget. We're talking about losing entire departments at that point.
We're looking at around, okay, from 7.9. That could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What would-
so if we're talking about cutting that much money, I mean, you saw exactly what happened. I'm not entirely sure I'm allowed in the library anymore, but if
What did you do?
I cut $50,000 from their budget. No, I'm joking, they're lovely. But if we cut that much from a 7% because of the rebound, but 7% because of the revenue decrease. Yes, we have to come down from the 4% spending increase, sure. But we can't go to just a 1.5 overall tax burden. Because then we're actually decreasing the amount of spending we're cutting into the town budget. We're not flat at that point.
We're not cutting, we're reducing.
No, we're not.
Board of
We're
Ed-
cutting.
Board of
We are-
Ed decides what they do on their end, the Board of Selectmen decide what they do on
No,
their end.
But we're not
Bruce, it's
reducing.
making up for making up for the revenue shortfall, which is almost half of the 7.5. So if you go that far down,
We're cutting
then
into
you're,
budget.
you know.
So what do you think would be acceptable for taxpayers?
I
can't
think what would be acceptable is something that they can understand, first of all. Some information in front of them, just like we don't have any information about what Ralph was talking about. The taxpayers have yet to see any communication from this board, and like Mike said,
A letter would be
that,
nice.
like, this is an opportunity to explain to people what's going on. It's our responsibility, it's more than an opportunity.
Well, people know what's going on.
And no, I don't think they do.
Here we go back to last year where they're
Yeah.
misinformed and they're ignorant.
No,
No,
that
you
is
didn't say
not
that.
what I said then, and it's not what I'm saying now.
Okay.
They're not ignorant. The people in this town are not ignorant
We're
at all.
not sharing.
And we're not sharing, we are not operating from a agreed upon set of facts.
Or a
We-
point of transparency.
First of all, we don't have facts in front of us. We don't have a shared understanding of what's going on. Even this discussion right now of what would that take? What's that number? You don't know. Everybody's done their own calculations and looked at their own things, but we're not looking at a piece of paper that has it clearly laid out. That would be great to have for us, but also for the townspeople. They need to understand this is really, really bad, what is about to happen. I don't know if they understand that. There's different people saying different things, and I think we need to tighten it up and understand this. And, that's what we're the fiduciary responsibility of this place. And we can't be recommending to the town that we cut $1 million, which means cutting into. I don't even know where we would start.
Can't we?
Why can't we?
Yeah.
It's irresponsible.
It's
People
really-
don't-
It's irresponsible.
You're mine too.
Mine
Mine too.
Right.
I mean, I was first selectman for 8 years. I have an understanding of what Pete deals with on a daily basis, with the things that need to be taken care of, but also the things that we have to do legally. The things that we have to be in compliance with. And also just the things that the people in the town want, to make an actual community. Those things, it's just a lot of problems and you have to solve them all, and we have great people that are hired, and we also have great volunteers that solve all of those problems all the time. But they need some resources to do it. Things will, we can't, I don't think that it's responsible for us to say, okay, we will just burn it all down. When we haven't even explained to people that that's what's about to happen.
Most people are looking at their pocket and the effect that the tax increase they're having on their lives.
I have a feeling if you were to go to the town and say, pick a department,
Everyone's gonna have,
shutting it.
everyone's gonna have a different.
Everybody's gonna-
Everyone's everything that they don't wanna spend.
Okay, I'm only 52. Go ahead and shut down the senior center. Well, we know what happens then. The library can go, no, that one's not gonna work.
I live on a
Okay.
state road, so I don't care
Yeah,
about
no, I
fixing any
don't
of
care
those
about
other
the
roads.
roads. Yeah,
I mean, that's just, it's
Yeah.
not how it works.
none of my trees are problematic at the moment, so all y'all with your trees.
Yeah, it can't be,
That's not a community.
not a house on
No.
a budget, I heard. It's taking care of the whole community.
Yeah.
You know, I can see getting it down I mean, Pete's been saying for the whole budget season. And maybe up until this exact moment that 5% would be a good number to be at. And that he showed us his hand-drawn chart, his graph. that shows, you know, that where he did, I guess, take some data or some
was
data.
something, yeah.
It's something, but it wasn't, you know, there's no data to go with it that I could really tell what it was. But he still feels certain that that's a kind of breaking point, and I feel like that would be taking this increase that failed in the first referendum down by a third. I think that's a lot. I think this, well, no, can I just, yeah. Because that's a significant amount of money, and it would take about 400 grand to get there. So that's a huge cut, I think. So I have ideas for how to get there, but I'm not gonna put them on the table for, you know, a way of, and is Pete not here?
No.
Okay, that's unfortunate. I know he's not, I know he doesn't feel well, but, because, you know, if we, you know, I can see doing that, and I think that would be a good response for a second referendum. Because it's showing, hey, it's 2.5 percentage points down, it's a third less than the first increase. Which the first increase reflected much more of the revenue shortfall. But can we cut away the significant impact that's happened in this town? No, I don't think we can do it all on the spending side, because this is not hitting new spending, it's not even hitting spending from 5 years ago. It's going deep, it's taking us back. And I just don't think we need to go from 7.5 to 1.5.
And not only
I think
would we be
that's,
cutting into the budget, we'd also be cutting into a budget and ignoring the fact that the cost of everything is higher now than it was when the budget was at that earlier time. So we're really going to be operating, I mean, God forbid Troy wants to buy his asphalt or his salt or his whatever. It's not going to work.
So as far as Peter's graph went, the data on that graph, that 5%, okay? So you're talking about a 5% net to be raised by taxation, okay? But then you have to take into account the reval on top of it, okay? So if somebody's paying the 5% to have in taxes for funding the programs and everything, then they're being told that they're paying another 5 to 10% on top of it. They're not paying 5%. I mean, the reality of it is they're paying a lot more than what the net to be raised by taxation is for expenditures.
revals
You
come.
can't debate that.
Yeah, because first of all, if they're paying 5% overall, that's also covering the revenue shortfalls. One of which is the redoing of the valuation of cars, which took 9 million out of our small town grand list, 9 million. Not in spending, in valuation. So, you know, those are huge numbers. That and you know, not for nothing, but like when that happened, we could do this next year, but I think it's too late this year. We had been given a choice as a town, all the towns in Connecticut. If you you have an option, because towns we're all going through revaluation. We can't handle all this vehicle taxation money to go away, revenue to go away. So they said, okay, instead of the first year of the new layout in value in cars, instead of it being 85% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price, instead of the blue book, it can be 90%. So that would have saved us, I think I figured it out as about 152,000. Just for that bit, that little 5% difference that every town has the option of doing. It never got to the Board of Finance, it never got to the Board of Selectmen, never became a policy decision. The deadlines are gone for it for this, I believe, for this upcoming fiscal year. But we would have put it in place, that's 150,000, 55,000, 52,000 more that we would not be having to raise in taxation this year. You know what I mean? So I feel like, you know, I feel like we missed that opportunity. That's sounds like small potatoes, but it's not when your budget's being cut. And it's not when we're having a discussion about this, about getting something down to 1.5. I don't think that's what the voters said. Some of them, sure, but I don't think that's, I don't think that's what they're saying, and I'd be open to hearing a good presentation about, you know, a smart approach to tax relief, but neither do I, and I know Pete feels this way, because I talked to him about where does he come down on this? There is an issue that you get into, which is whenever you move tax burden from one group, and let's face it, the residential is actual, that is market value for homes that is shot through the roof. And in the other classes, categories, it hasn't happened to that degree. So it is taxing those other categories more, including maybe moving out, maybe eradicating the vehicle savings that they had by the state policy. So I know that's true in the first year of some of the phase-in ones that we've done, because I worked on some numbers about that. So, you know, if you want to talk about something more realistic, I can put things on the table, and others probably have things too that that we can talk about if you want to do that. But these are ideas that there's no pain-free budget cutting, and definitely not in a year like this. So they all have impact, but some of them are a little wiser than going after staff members and programs that the town council.
Okay.
So just working off of an Excel spreadsheet that I basically took of what was proposed for the last budget. And this comment of we're actually gonna cut back on our budget is not true at all. Cause right now, we would, with the Board of Education's change, we would be increasing $1,042.88. Say if we took, which is a 6.4% taxation increase. Say if we took 750,000 from that, we're still increasing the budget. It is not being cut. So this saying of we're cutting into the budget is not true. The budget's actually still growing. It's growing at $292,088, which is a 1.8% increase. So I just want to make that correction, because it keeps on saying we're cutting into the budget. That's completely false.
So
It's not completely false when you it's not completely false when you factor in that the cost for everything is going up.
Plus, what he was saying is, if we take this budget and have a zero growth in all departments, no growth at all. So that would be a completely zero budget. And then only have a 1.5% tax increase, which is the amount that we need to send to Region 19, okay? We have a 2.7% tax burden that we have to pay. That.
The numbers are the numbers. You can't, the facts are facts. That it's right here.
We don't, we don't have it, we don't have the.
1 plus 1 equals 2.
You are looking at your
1
phone.
plus 1 equals 2.
I'm looking at your phone. We don't have it.
Well, just want to let you know the facts.
I just want to make sure that make sure you're aware, if you go below that 2.7 and the board's at 0. You have to be aware, Don's nodding her head, she knows what I'm gonna say. You have to be aware of your minimum budget requirement, that's the law. And you are not supposed to go below that number, and you will be penalized by your BCS if you don't qualify for certain things. We would have to make sure we do some research so that we don't violate that. You'll be penalized for it if you go below that 0.
And Pete said something similar before he left about some of the things in the budget are preparing to qualify for grant work, and things like even that big road grant that we're hoping to get is contingent upon our spending our money on engineering and prep. It's not, it's got strings attached. So it's not just a gift and we can use it for that. We can't. So with public projects work. You know what, Nick, I don't really want to debate with you. I would really.
It's a question to Phil,
Okay.
because by state
I really
statute.
think I should debate with people on the board if we're gonna make the decision. I mean, honestly, you've had a lot of input and everybody has, but at this point,
I understand,
I really
like I'm
think if we
saying,
could just
it's a
discuss, that would
0.5%
be good.
increase, correct? by state statute, you can't go more than 0.5% down. As long as you check there's three criterias. And
That's what I'm saying, you
yeah.
would wanna make sure you do the research.
Yeah, right.
It's a conversation.
Mike?
Mike McCool, Clover Springs, respecting the fact that the chair has said he wanted to reserve this meeting mostly for conceptual conversations and sort of figuring out themes and ideas. I think we're mixing conceptual conversations with numbers. And I think we have to be careful because, Nick has some numbers, which I don't doubt the math at all. Ralph has some numbers, I don't doubt that math at all. I've been doing numbers on my phone and checking my taxes and the effect, and I don't doubt my numbers. The fact of the matter is, nobody up here at the table is responsible to make that decision for the taxpayers. Should have to try to make the decisions based on all of us providing these inputs. As Christina said, you have to get to the point where you have your numbers and the spreadsheet that you're gonna trust. And all that Donna's magic spreadsheet, so maybe it's not tonight, maybe it's the next meeting, but usually this time of year. These decisions are made with the spreadsheet up on the board, and you're trying the numbers out to see what the actual effect is. And that way, everyone who's in the audience is seeing what the effect is based on the, shall we say, endorsed math. And then there's no question if somebody missed something or didn't understand or didn't know about a certain factor that's involved or whatever. So all this input's valuable, but at some point we need to get the magic sheet on the board and we need to actually work with these numbers and see what the effect really is. You know, because all those formulas do, sort of magic things sometimes, and that is hopefully the most truthful set of information you can make decisions based on.
And that's.
That's
such a-
And but.
Little lullaby start.
Anything else this evening to be discussed on this?
I'll put a motion on the table. Is that permissible?
Yeah,
To put a motion on the table.
Yeah, to do what?
Oh, well, no, I'm not gonna say it until you say I can enter a motion.
Well, good.
Board member, you can put a motion.
Okay. Yeah, it is a regular meeting and we are talking about budgets. I'm going to recommend cuts, well, I'm gonna first recommend that no, I'll wait for that. I'm gonna recommend that we I move that we accept the reduction to the Board of Education budget of $162,553.
It wasn't on the agenda just to have a general discussion and not to vote on any issue regarding.
Is there a second?
Can add anything to
It
the
was,
agenda.
it wasn't on the agenda.
You can-
It's
It
rejected.
doesn't, but we never say you can make a motion. It's a regular meeting and we're in the area of talking about it. And we have you guys just presented a budget calendar, a second referendum
Yeah,
calendar.
add to just put a motion to add to the agenda to vote on the budget and then do your motion. You can do that if they approve you to add it to the
Okay.
agenda.
I'll do that, but it also says, I mean, I don't know, it's a regular meeting and I'm moving it, but.
Yeah, I think that's. I'll second it.
All those in favor, say
Well, then
aye.
I think we have to ask if there's discussion.
Oh, is there discussion?
I don't wanna go on anything because we get the whole.
Yeah,
Do you want to do it in one fell swoop with everything in one motion?
yep.
Well,
What's your number, Jeff, as far as a percentage year over year? Or compared to the 7.5?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't use any town services. I could go without everything. I mean, follow the road, I'm fine.
Oh, plow the road, there's one.
Well, that's.
I feel the same way, just essential services.
But not everyone feels the same way, so there's other argue over.
Wait, I just wanna get this straight, so you're saying you don't need any education, or we don't need any education as a town? Right, but is it just about an individual?
You're asking about my
Fire
personal.
truck.
You know, the issue here isn't about having education or not having education.
Yes, I
So
think
don't
it
shape
is.
it that way.
I think it is.
Okay, you're.
I mean, not all together, but you know, I think when you look at a town budget as your single household or your single personal world, you're missing the boat on what this is about.
Yeah, I know that.
There
Talking
is a
about
fiscal
myself here.
responsibility here. I know, Jeff, I know that. You know, but I think going from 7.4 or whatever to 1.5 is ruthless. I mean, I would want to see, I'd really want to see some real numbers about where and how you would do that. But I don't really feel like we have the time. And honestly, I don't think a 2-to-1 vote rejecting a 7.4 increase is the same as saying, throw the whole thing out, throw everything down to zero. That's something that I think is in your head and maybe with the circle of people you talk to, but it's certainly not what I've heard tonight. I've heard it from a few people, but I've not heard it from across the board. And it's certainly not what I hear from people I talk to. So what about you guys? Is there
Well,
anyone
you know,
else who
you're saying that
feels the same
about
thing?
seeing real numbers, okay, and not making any other decision, but you wanna make a decision on accepting these reductions from the Board of Education, when you haven't seen any of the other ones.
But they provided numbers though.
Yeah, they're
But we don't
really,
wanna know what any of the other numbers are from the Board of Selectmen.
She's just saying for
I'm
that
saying
budget.
for that
She's not
budget.
saying sweeping.
Oh, no,
Everybody.
yeah, I know, but how can you accept this one without knowing what the other offers are on the table?
Because
They're
you,
different budget.
because it's one budget. It's
I know
one,
that
it's
I
one
know that there are
question.
three separate ones, okay? But we don't have to vote on this one tonight, and there's no reason to, until
There's a-
we know
there's a
all the
motion
other
on the
figures.
table.
There's a motion on the table.
There's a-
Oh, yeah, there's a motion on the table. We're having discussion about it too.
So, well, I'll
I just,
offer other things, but not in this motion. This has got to be a separate motion anyway.
yeah.
It's not
it would
part
have-
of an overall motion. It's got to be part of,
It's-
Board of Ed is separate.
Yeah, it's just
and it's-
accepting the one budget that had changes to it. So it's just saying, hey, we have this information now.
Let's get
And-
this out of the
and
way.
we
Let's
know
just
that-
get this one out of the way, so we're not here for 5 hours next week, or however long.
Next week, we have the final discussion, and then we vote. We don't have to vote on this tonight, or we don't have to vote yes on it.
However you vote is how you vote, and that's fine, nobody's saying that, but you keep conflating two things, like. I don't know, Never mind.
And if it's, you know, they're getting it pretty darn close to. I mean, you know, I think other towns are dealing with the same thing we're facing. They're dealing with similar things on their
Some of them have
revaluation.
done it twice, and some are doing it a third time because they didn't make the right decisions the first time.
Right, but I haven't seen anyone take it down to zero. I have not seen anyone do that. So I think
You
that's
know what's
like,
gonna happen is if they don't accept any budgets before July 1st, then they'll be down to zero.
I believe if we don't accept a budget, it reverts to the previous year.
Yeah, that's right.
And
As a, provision. Well,
Which means we have a 2.7% tax increase.
and we'll be in the hole, because the cost for everything went up, so anything that any department needs to do, they're gonna have to come to us for money, because they don't have it budgeted, and then we're
we're negative, we're in the hole.
Well, it's just irresponsible because we have mandates that are built into this budget that did increase it. So I think we're definitely talking about layoffs without any kind of strategy for that. And I don't think that this is not a town that's thick with staff. It's just not. In fact, one of the ideas would be to, of course, take out the remaining new employee, new hours and that, I mean, I think we definitely have to do that. It's not a huge number left because we've already done that to some degree. Phil did that with a big number. So, and that's something that's in his budget this year. So we're not,
Yeah.
he's reaching that because he's giving up something that's already in his budget, and we traditionally go year over year into the next year's budget. So, anyway.
Any more discussion on that? Do we have two motions to vote on whether to accept the Board of Education's budget or not?
No, we just have one motion.
I thought somebody seconded it.
Christine.
Oh, yeah, seconded it. That's just one motion though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have a motion to vote on accepting the Board of Education's budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. So it's 3-3, so the motion fails. All right, so now we'll move on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and
You want
encouraged.
to talk about other cuts or not?
Speak. No.
Okay.
Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments. To maintain progress, stay on topic and maintain decorum. James?
James Marshall, Fisher Road again. Look, I'm sitting here as somebody who chairs a committee and also is a taxpayer, and I'm remarkably frustrated and getting really angry at the way this board has handled the discussions post-referendum, in addition to what happens pre-referendum. We're sitting here with a calendar that is really aggressive. And there was nothing of substance tonight, no detailed effort, no specifics related to what you could do to address the failed referendum and support this budget. We had a conversation on CIP. Pete is looking for you guys to provide recommendation before he decides what to do. Everybody's passing the buck. Everybody's talking in hypotheticals. At this point, we should be looking respectfully at detailed evaluation. The only time that's happened on this board this entire budget season was your appropriation night, where you looked at individual line items and actually discussed what this town needs, what your opinion as a board is for this town. It is the most irresponsible way of handling a budget season that I can possibly imagine. And it has to change, guys, because now you're pushing it all up to one meeting where you're gonna have these same discussions again with very little deliberation. And then who knows where that goes from there. So it's unacceptable to me personally, as a resident of this town. I can't fathom this continuing. It really is, it's just that blatantly unacceptable. So I really hope you call a special meeting before next week to do some, detailed itemization and understand what you want to do without just saying, throwing random numbers at the wall with not based on any data other than feels, because that's where you're at. And respectfully, Jeff, you may not use any services.
I'm being facetious, Jeff.
You were,
What I,
well, it's not appropriate either, because you are elected, you're an elected representative. You support and promote the well-being of the town as a whole. Whether you use those services or not, you're here for the community. That's your job. You were elected to do that. The flippance and, blasé attitude towards it is just ridiculous. And it's just unacceptable, guys. So please work hard to do better across the board.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Richard Cook, 77 Carver Road. If you guys are, when you guys are talking about tax increases or anything, my fiance and I, we're trying to get established in town. I've been here for 22 years. So when you guys are talking about tax increases, we're not super rich. We're 22, 23. So the tax increases, the reevaluation, it hit my parents hard. The vehicle taxes hit us hard. So when you guys are talking about increases or cuts, just maybe take into consideration like the younger people that in town that maybe don't have as much money and are getting hit with tax bills left or right. So that's just all. Thank you.
Speak to the floor.
Lori Semperone, Turnpike Road. A couple of things. As a taxpayer in town, I want this board to be responsible. I want this board to consider the needs of the people, the needs of the town. I understand that people want local taxes. I'm not happy about paying higher taxes either. But it's really important that we're actually looking at what's happening. Are you just gonna show up next week and do the same thing? Just randomly, well, I think it's 0%. You're not looking at numbers. You're not looking at specific things. You have to do some legwork. I've been on this board and I've been on other boards. I hope you do some homework between now and next week. And one last thing. Mr. Lawler, you are the chair, you're not the king. When somebody says they want to discuss something further, that's their right as a board member. And you just decide the meeting is over, you're a chair. That means you just coordinate the meeting. You don't have any more power than anybody else on this board. Please remember that, because all of the members of this board are here to make decisions. And you're coming off a little bit as a bully, and that's not what a chair should do.
Thank you. Peter.
Peter Wiltindich, 97 Fast Road. I can appreciate that Board of Finance members have opinions on the budget. I respect those opinions, and I also agree that you have fiduciary responsibility. But ultimately, we decide the budget, not you, when we go to referendum. And I thank God that we have a town meeting form of government. What I strenuously object to is suggesting that we as voters are stupid or ignorant. That is wrong. And
Who said that? He does that.
He
Fair point. He said that. And I never said that. No, I did not say it. You used that
Am I allowed
word
to
last
reflect
year.
my comments?
And that's
or
what got me
add
upset.
element of attacks?
And it
Oh,
was
really?
clarified. in the-
I'll go on Zoom and I'll find it and quote you, okay?
Oh, that I said voters are ignorant?
You said that they were misinformed and that they didn't know what they were voting for, and she said the same thing.
That's
And that's not it.
That's
Am
different.
I permitted to finish my remarks, or
Yes, go ahead, finish.
am I going to be Hillary?
Well, we're energized by them.
Thank you. What I do agree with is that more information for voters is always better.
Yeah.
And therefore, I would recommend that this tight schedule be expanded to include a public hearing prior to going to referendum, so we can have the kind of two-way conversation that's more difficult at one of your regular Board of Finance meetings. That, I think that would be helpful to everyone. And you might find that we're not as ignorant as you think. Thank you.
Don't look at me when you say that, I'm not saying that.
Either.
That's really offensive.
Bob Shabbat, 17 Jared Sparks Road. I could say a lot of things, but I'll hold it to a minimum tonight. I find it appalling that the board was talking about, oh, what we really need to do is understand about this phase-in. I heard no one here, not one of you, say a word about perhaps we should get a meeting together with the assessor so we can understand what's going on. That's irresponsible.
Thanks, Bob. John?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I said earlier. I would hate to see this board and the Board of Selectmen send another budget to referendum and then have representatives from this board and the Board of Selectmen go out and urge people to vote against it. I think if that happens again, you should all just resign. There is no need for that kind of quote unquote leadership. If you want to send a budget to referendum that we can support, please do so. And let's all support it and get it passed so that we can run our town in an appropriate manner.
Next.
Maytella Murder Road. So, first I wanna start off by saying, I'm glad to see the board conduct how they are conducted, because I think the back and forth, even if it can be tension, have tension, I think it does bring some value, right? And boards before didn't have that, so they say, oh, we don't know what the people are. Well, you've had that discussion, and I think it is healthy, even though it gets a little bit tense. So I wanna say thank you for allowing that. It is unfortunate to see one board member earlier trying to silence me because she doesn't like what I have to say. I get it. It's unfortunate to see that. I think Jeff is looking at it on how many people in town look at the budget. I'm not one. I got four kids, three that are school age. I can't even use the school systems I won't go down that road, but I can't even use the school systems. So I don't even care about the Board of Education. He's speaking on my behalf when I'm not gonna say everything I agree, but he's speaking on people that are out there. Last year, somebody, it looks like he left, he's complaining about, well, I won't speak him. People are complaining that, members are supporting or not supporting the budgets. Last year, the people that wanted an increase in taxes had no problem with Peter Tanaka writing and signing a letter to support an increase. No problem then, but all of a sudden members speak against it and now we do have a problem. Kind of interesting and funny there. The numbers are the numbers. 1 plus, like I said earlier, 1 + 1 is 2. You plug in the numbers, you'll see it's the same graph that Donna has up there. I just took the number of 750,000 with the new Board of Education number, and it literally comes out that we're still raising the budget. So may not like it, but it is what it is. To think, well, early, I think I already touched upon that. Nobody is gonna be in the whole needing to come to Board of Finance, that was mentioned earlier, from Jason. If they just budget their departments correctly, it's really simple. Just be responsible and budget your department. You won't have to come back. Earlier, there was some mention of Ashford, Bolton, Coventry, Brooklyn, East Hampton, as saying how these towns are going up 5%. If you look at their per pupil expense, they're under state averages. So them going up 5% is much different than us going up 5% when they're already below the state averages. We're above the state averages. I mean, one of these towns is $17,977, while we're $24,707 according to edsite.gov. So using these comparisons is not really apples to apples there. Car tax impact on newer cars. It was touched upon earlier. I mean, some of these people have nicer cars, newer cars. So when you see these changes with the car tax, you're gonna see a drop off in values compared to an older car that's valued less. You're gonna see that. And then, so what Phil was saying earlier, I'm not sure if he's still here, it sounds like that they have a floating schedule. It's not a 4x4 block. And I've been looking into this for a little while now, and most studies that show it may not be desirable by school districts, they might not like it, but a 4x4 schedule is the most efficient way to reduce your staff. Again, I know the Board of Education is probably gonna say, no, we don't want it, this and that, but we need to be efficient with our money. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else present to speak?
I just wanna say, when we were discussing about, well, what number do you think? What number I think is not really, my opinion doesn't count. My opinion is coming from who I talk to in town. And that's why I didn't say where I thought that a number should be, because I'm talking to people in town and I'm trying to get a feel for what they think is acceptable. I don't think that I should even quote my opinion, because my opinion really, I mean, yes, my interactions are important, but to me, listening to the people in town, and it's important that we all talk to people. regardless, you know, and I think that's part of it. Maybe I'm not presenting a number, but I'm going out there and I'm talking to all sorts of people in town. I'm talking to people that have money, people that don't have money, people that have children, people that are elderly. So, you know, I am factoring in my questions based on that. So for me, I just want to let everybody know, it wasn't that I wasn't prepared and I don't have a thought in my head. It's just my opinion of where our number needs to be. Isn't, and I really need to see all the numbers together. I'm one of those people, that's why I didn't want to say, yes, I want to agree with, because maybe what Phil has is what's going to probably stand, and maybe it will, but I want to see exactly the overall picture of all the numbers together before I make a final decision. I need to know both sides of the story in order for me to put that picture together, and I don't. I just wanted everybody to understand that. That's why I don't think my number really, fighting over that, I think is just kind of redundant.
Jen McCoo, Clover Springs Drive. Melissa, I really appreciate your comment. I feel like there's been a lot of folks on the board. There have been a couple of folks on the board tonight who have indicated that they have talked to people, and this is what the people have told them. I'm just rhetorically curious about the people that have been spoken to by people on the board. We tend to insulate ourselves with people who think like us. So I could talk to the people I talk to every day, and it's quite possible that they think the same way I do. So if you're gonna isolate the people you talk to, yeah, you're gonna hear the same thing and you're gonna hear the thing you wanna hear. What is the outreach? What is the effort to get, Melissa, as you were talking about, what is the effort to understand the feel of the town? We have people who ring this bell all the time. The people have spoken, the people have spoken. The people voted down a 7 point something budget. Sure, they did. Did they vote in a 0% increase? I don't think they did that, but no one knows that. And to multiple points tonight, where are the numbers? Why can't we see what's happening right now so you guys can have an intelligent discussion about what is going to impact what? And then people will be informed, because this room was filled tonight for the first time ever. And there was no information for people to sink their teeth into. Very, very frustrating.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, move on to good and welfare. Anybody have any good and welfare? Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One nay, and the abstention.
No.
Well, that was really.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, this is-